Yeah. Sorry, everybody, for the delay. We had an executive session that went a lot longer, as you know, because you've waited patiently for 35 minutes than expected. We're just waiting for two board members, Mrs. Wallace and Mrs. Hume, to come back, and then we will get started as soon as they get. Thank you. Sorry. Pass it down now. Yeah, give it a whirl here.
All right, I'd like to call to order the Brandywine Heights Area School District School Board meeting for May 2nd. Please rise and pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Bruner, can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Eisenherr? Here. Mr. Hafner?
Yeah, here.
Mr. Hohenschildt?
Here.
Mrs. Hume? Here. Mr. Reitnauer?
Here.
Mr. Sheets?
Here.
Mr. Stubitz?
Here.
Mrs. Walliser? Here. Mr. Ryman?
Here.
9 present.
All right, moving on to recognitions. Mr. Pottinger.
Well, good evening, everybody, and we have some very exciting and maybe a little bit sad, maybe not for the employee, but for us as a school district, recognitions today. We have 3 wonderful people that have been with the district for many years that are going to be retiring. So we will call each of them up individually. The first one we like to call up is Miss Roseanne Kegerice. So Roseanne, if you don't mind coming up, and Mr. Jitch, if you don't mind joining us. So Roseanne, on behalf of 31 years in the school district, we'd like to present you a plaque as a small token of our appreciation for everything you have done for the school district. It's been truly an honor to work with you, to work side by side with you. You have so many community connections. You care so deeply about this district, so deeply about these students. It is, like I said earlier, it's a loss to us, but a great opportunity for you to take the next step in life. Congratulations.
Speak on behalf of Mrs. Kegerice. Mrs. Kegerice has been with the district for 31 years and in a variety of different capacities and doing different positions. But I've grown to know Roseanne in the 4 years as our high school attendance secretary, which is a pretty interesting job in and of itself, because if you've ever seen a high schooler in the morning and a late high schooler in the morning, they are often not the most pleasant of children, especially if they're running late or have something going on and all of those things. Mrs. Kegerice has always been a positive and friendly face for them. And then over the last 2 years, all of the challenges that we've had to face just with attendance in general, and with virtual and in and out, and those things that we've been able to shift and adapt to. Mrs. Kegritz has been with us every step of the way. She's been a positive resource for me since my very first day in the building, and I know that I'm going to miss giving her a hard time every single day. But more than that, just everything that she's brought to our office, she's been really, really wonderful, and I'm going to miss her very dearly, which is why I'm going to ask her to come every single day.
From about 7:15 until 8 o'clock.
But really, really a wonderful resource for the district, and I love the opportunity to work with you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. It has really been a pleasure, and I don't want to have to cry. It's really, I'm happy, but I'm also sad because it's been my family for 31 years, and I've been through a lot, which you know, Andrew.
Yeah.
A couple buildings, and I've enjoyed everything I've done in all the years that I've been here. So just want to thank everybody for the opportunity to have me here. So,
Always with a smile and positive attitude.
I try.
Yep. Roseanne is joined this evening by her husband, right? So thank you for all you've done to support Roseanne in this process as well. So next up, I know it says Mrs. Wolozowski. She actually is being recognized this evening over at Lions Field right now with the Athletic Hall of Fame. So she's going to try to sneak over here in the middle of all that so we can recognize her this evening. So we're going to put that one on hold. The next one we'd like to recognize is Mrs. Carol Gariner. Carol, if you don't mind coming up. Carol, do you look at your agenda? 40 years. 40 years dedicated just to Brandywine. It is.
Well, I don't know. I think you're talking real potatoes or instant.
It's true. Carol has just been, and Nicole is going to share a few words, but Carol has just been such a wonderful, positive person within our school district. I had an opportunity to work with Carol directly when I was at Rockland, and she knew every student by name. She still does that in the elementary school. She has such a personable, caring approach to her. On a personal bias, I would get adult lunch as a principal, and then she'd take all the leftovers, throw it on, put it on a plate, bring it into my office because I was running around crazy, and she took care of me too. So, Carol, thank you so much for 40 years of service. That's awesome.
So I wrote a lot of notes about Carol since it was 40 years. So just the first page. So I got to know Carol when I came to Brandywine, but just kind of a history about Carol. She spent about 2.5 years as an on-call cafeteria employee, and then she began working the 3-hour day shift at the middle school, I think, for Brandywine back in 1982, before she moved over to Rockland, which I think became her home for quite a few years.
Yeah, my car didn't know how to go another direction. It closed.
I would just say, looking back to the last 40 years, working at Brandywine food service operations, it's very different than it was back then. Gas prices were
I will agree with you
91
there.
cents.
It's not even close to the same.
So we know it's all different, and then especially the rules and regulations that have increased and influenced how she's had to operate her kitchen over the years. However, it was during those periods of change that Carol has shown her excellent ability to adapt to change and the drive she possessed to ensure smooth operations continued during all those times, most notably during COVID. Regardless of the year during
And I
Carol's...
knew how to put up with a lot too.
We'll get there, for sure. Regardless of the year during Carol's career, Carol has always been an excellent employee. So much so that she assumed the head cook position during the 87-88 school year with recommendations from Miss Lenhart and Mr. Fisher. So going back to them. So year after year, whether it be Rockland now or elementary school or one and only, Carol has run a smooth kitchen and provided quality meals to our youngest learners. I would say my initial interactions with Carol was when they were helping serve lunches at the high school at the Camp Spark kiddos, and she was saying how we were given too many options on the condiments. So this just shows she enjoys the young kiddos. You give them too many of whether it be honey mustard, ketchup, barbecue sauce for the chicken fingers. It really stops the line. They can't make a decision. It's the greatest thing. So I would say she was looking forward to go back to the elementary and knowing those kiddos. And I also did learn that elementary kids do not prefer wraps. They enjoy sandwiches. So,
There's a lot of things they don't.
Carol has really taught me a lot this year when it comes to menu planning and whatnot. So for me, I haven't been here all that long, but I'll remember Carol as having the most organized walk-in cooler and freezer, where everything is perfectly labeled. So when we had our audit this year and they said they were going to the elementary school, I was like, oh, thank God. I have nothing to worry about. But she's always that individual who's committed to her work, the kids, her kitchen, and as Andrew said, the staff. And whether it was, part of her responsibility or not, she's always that first person to lend a helping hand. Lastly, I think most districts have their go-to people. These are the people who know how something has been done in the past or where to find something. They're people who can handle a difficult situation. I would say Carol has been one of our Brandywine's go-to people for 40 years now. So she's leaving some big shoes to fill. We know that Carol's looking forward to retirement. I think we can speak for everyone in saying that we are excited to wish Carol health. And we hope you start checking off some items on that retirement bucket list. And in my search today, when I was trying to find out what you've done over the last 40 years, I heard that you guys did graduate from the same high school.
Yes,
and you're
we
now
did.
retiring from the same district. So that was a good one.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. I'm sure somebody will be able to fill my shoes real easy.
But it won't be you.
Well, thank you.
Congratulations, Carol.
Thanks.
Next up, we have our New Heights Awards winners for the month. And so we have two wonderful people to recognize this evening. The first one we're going to start with is Mackenzie. Mackenzie, if you don't mind coming up. Mackenzie is, then we go from the extreme, 40 years to relatively new. She's recently joined the Brandywine team. And so Mr. Ginch is going to join and share a few words here. But Mackenzie, I'm just going to read the two recognitions of why you are receiving the New Heights Award. So the first one is Mackenzie is new to me in the library this year and has been amazing! Exclamation point! Exclamation point! She comes in with a positive attitude every day and full of ideas to help promote the library. She is creative, and even though she works in 3 different areas of the district, she gives her all. It is a pleasure to work with her every day. The second one is I would like to nominate Mackenzie for the New Heights Award. Mackenzie has definitely been an asset to helping in the high school office. She fills in with me when I am not in and definitely knows most of the job and is a pleasure to work with. So, Mackenzie, congratulations on the New Heights Award, and Mr. Ginich.
Yeah, we had a retirement up in our library at the end of last school year. So after some creative staffing, Miss Kelly was nice enough to share with me her phenomenal library assistant in Mackenzie, who came and joined us this year. So I think Mackenzie wins for most interesting day every day, because she starts her day out at the high school in our library, and then sometimes coming down into the main office with some tasks there, but then gets to transition over from the high school to the elementary school. So in a day, you see the 18-year-olds, and then you also see some of our 8-year-olds in the same day. And just the positivity and creativity that Mackenzie's lent to both, not just both libraries, but to our office. She's phenomenal with the kids, and it's been a real pleasure to work with. So thank you so much for all you've been doing this year.
Mackenzie, what's the current project going on in the library? I know you have all kinds of art things always going on in there.
Currently at the high school, it's popcorn themed.
Ooh.
And in the elementary, all the Lego new stuff.
She has all these really amazing things she does within the library to make it fun, exciting, fun, and as you can hear, different themes. So, Mackenzie, thank you for what you brought to the school district and most important, the library for our students. Congratulations. Our next recipient, and Mr. Ginch will stay up here, is Miss Michelle Moore. Miss Moore, if you don't mind coming up here. I'll read the recognition for Miss Moore. Miss Moore did a phenomenal job with teaching her students all about entrepreneurism. Students worked on creating a food truck business. They planned on the marketing aspects involving creative menus, setting prices, and designing logos. In addition, they planned a presentation for peers, teachers, and staff. This presentation required them to consider things like word choice, slogans, and jingles. The activity used a point-of-sale simulation to engage participants and create a fun competition among classes. All in all, this experience was a great way to engage students beyond the textbook and provide them an experiential learning experience. So I had an opportunity to go over. It was so neat. They used the entire wrestling room, and all the kids had a trifold poster board set up for their type of food truck menu they're doing, and they had to give a rationale why they chose that. They had to come up with all of the marketing pieces behind it, and then all the students and staff walked through with big money, Monopoly money, and then purchase different food items from the food trucks. So it was a great hands-on experience. That's just one of the tiny things she does in the host of all the influences you have within the school district.
Yeah, I think for me, Ms. Moore provides so many different opportunities for our students, whether it's through SAD, through FBLA, through the business courses and accounting that she offers. There's so many opportunities that Ms. Moore exposes to our students every single day. And for those things that are not just going to help them now when they're in high school, but more importantly when they're out in the real world, whether it be college or if they start their careers. And to see all of to see our students engaging in internships, or you oversee the school store, all of the different things that she's woven into the building. It's really, an essential piece of what's going on for the kids. And she's just awesome with our students and the opportunities that she provides them.
Thank you. So, Ms. Moore, congratulations.
Thank you.
And finally, we have one more recognition, and that is to recognize our board representatives and our students. Unfortunately, we only have one with us this evening, but we will recognize Tatiana. Tatiana, this is a certificate of appreciation from the school board for your service as a school board representative for this school year. You have done a phenomenal job of coming in every meeting, writing a great report, just being in tune with the principals and getting to hear the different things that are happening, to be able to sit and communicate more. On top of all the other things you do. So, congratulations. I want to be sure to recognize Lauren and Megan and provide the certificates. We wanted to do that this evening because this is the May meeting, obviously, but the June meeting is until after graduation is over, June 13th. And so we wanted to have an opportunity to recognize Tatiana tonight. Congratulations, Tatiana, and thank you.
Thank you. All right, the floor is yours, Tatiana.
In the elementary school, third grade students will have their step-up day on May 9th. They will get to visit the intermediate school and fourth grade classrooms. They will have the opportunity to participate in a scavenger hunt, try out the lockers, and have lunch in the cafeteria. It's a great transition opportunity for third graders before they move on up to the intermediate school. The kinder concert will take place on May 10th at 6 p.m. in the middle school auditorium. The students have been practicing their parts, sign language, and songs for this highly anticipated performance. The elementary school open house and art show will take place on May 17th and 18th. Please stop by to see the students' work on display. Kindergarten screenings will take place on June 6th and 8th. There are currently 68 students registered. May is a busy month in the intermediate and middle school. In addition to spring events and spring concerts, each grade will be participating in trips. The 8th grade will be visiting Gettysburg National Park tomorrow. 7th grade recently visited the Berks Nature Preserve and received compliments from the staff there as the most well-behaved and focused group that they have worked with. The 5th and 6th grade will soon be visiting camp. 6th graders were not able to attend last year as 5th graders due to COVID, but everyone is excited to attend, including the high school student chaperones. Finally, 4th grade will visit Holbrookdale Railroad later in May. The last 22 days of school are also a busy time as the middle school is preparing for award ceremonies on May 31st, field days on June 1st and 2nd, Hershey Park trips for music on May 13th, and a new activity where 8th graders are going to have an 80s themed send-off celebration on May 20th. The high school music department held their senior citizens concert last Friday after school. They'll be holding their spring concert tomorrow night at 7 p.m. in the high school auditorium for the community. Concert band, jazz band, concert choir, chamber singers, and treble choir will be performing. The high school music award ceremony will be held on May 10th at 7 p.m. and the senior showcase will be held on May 25th at 7 p.m. These will both be in the high school auditorium. On Saturday, the sophomore class held a spring carnival with a candy hunt, food, Ritas, and carnival games with help from the art and drama clubs. There was a great turnout and the sophomore class made over $1,000. This Friday is prom. Prom will be held at Shepherd Hills Event Center from 6 to 10 p.m. AP exams begin for students this week and continue through next week. Keystones will follow the week after. National Honor Society induction will take place for current juniors on May 13th at 6 p.m. in the high school auditorium. The BH Clothing Circle will be holding their last event of this school year on Saturday, May 14th. We will be laying out free clothing in the high school cafeteria from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. In sports news, Nate Berger qualified for the District 3 AA tennis playoffs and will compete this Friday, May 6th. In addition, Nate Berger and Brian Sexton qualified for the District 3 AA doubles tennis championships starting on May 13th. All other spring teams are in contention for postseason play. The annual All Sports Banquet will take place on Thursday, May 19th at 6 p.m. On Wednesday, May 4th, the annual Sports Signing Day will be held starting at 1 in the high school library. Garner Wetzel will be signing with Alvernia, Jaden Richards with Penn State Berks, Megan Schuster with DeSales, Dylan Reinert with Penn Tech, Dylan Cortez with Calumet College of St. Joseph's, and Elena Graff with Kutztown University. Lastly, high school graduation will take place on June 1st at Oak Fieldhouse in Kutztown.
Thank you very much.
Well done. I just added one of those events in my calendar. That was a lot. There's a lot of things happening within the school. Excellent job summing that up. Very nice job. And good luck with the clothing times next weekend.
Right, this is time for public comment. Anyone like to address the board? Yes.
So, as you may or may not be aware, U.S. News and World Report recently came out with their annual high school rankings, and we now have slipped below Reading to be ranked last in Berks County. So last in Berks County. Our test scores that are reported in that report are abysmal, and the AP participation rate, along with the performance on those AP exams, is also poor. And I spoke directly with Andrew about this last week. I'm wondering what the board is doing or looking at to improve this rather black eye on our school and community.
So we spoke the other day, as you mentioned, just for the kind of the dedication. We had a long conversation, but the gist of it really focused in on the Keystone exam score as well as our philosophy for AP. So two pieces. One, the Keystone exam scores that are being used at the state level are, if you go back last year, we had a kind of a gap because of COVID. The year before that, there was no testing at all. Keystone exams, just for everyone's knowledge, there's 3 Keystone exams that you have to have for graduation. You have to have an Algebra 1 exam, you have to have an English literature exam that you have to pass, and you have to be able to pass a biology exam. Originally, there was a host of 7 or 9 of these, and because of funding, those got cut back to those 3. So that's why they're kind of random courses, but those are the 3 you have to pass in order to graduate at the state level. So when you go back and track our students, really you're looking at data that's essentially 3 years old because of the COVID gaps in between there. And so, to answer the point directly, what are we doing? So we've done a lot in between there. We've evaluated our curriculum and reshaped our curriculum. We've invested in new resources. Staffing wise, we've invested in intervention specialists who work with students that are struggling. So we can go in and those students that are struggling there, particularly in this Keystone exams, particularly in Algebra 1, we can reshape that conversation and support those students. When this first hit us a couple years ago, we came to the board, and at that point we invested in curriculum specialists as well as an instructional specialist. And so those folks are working to work directly with the teachers on the curriculum side and work directly with teachers on the instructional side. And so those things that help the professional development side of it, to help our teachers grow and conversely help our students grow, has been occurring as well. So there's a lot of steps that have been put in place. The final thing I'd like to mention on Keystones is the restructuring of our Algebra 1. We talked about this at the last budget meeting, but just again for the education of everyone. Previously, we would test Algebra 1 primarily in 8th grade to 9th grade. We shifted that focus down to now 7th and 8th grade is where the primary amount of our students take the Algebra 1 exam, and it allows those students that are taking in 9th grade the additional 2 years or so of pre-algebra and other resources to be able to be a little bit more prepared for that. You take the Keystone exam when you are taking the course. So English literature, you take in 10th grade because that's when you have the English literature. Biology, typically 10th grade because that's when you have biology. Algebra is the weird one because some kids are taking algebra in 7th, some 8th, some 9th, some
in other grades. So that Algebra 1 is one that we've seen success by shifting it to the middle school. And really that was the direction from Mr. Farina when he came in and reevaluated and brought his professional experience to this. The other thing to note with Keystone exams is there are composite score, and so there's a bunch of different iterations. When you look at a composite score, there's three different sections to the Keystone. Two modules. Thank you.
Per exam.
Two modules per exam, and so there's different ways to slice and dice how the students are able to actually pass the exam. But those are the things that we've been looking at on the Keystone exam. The problem is that it's old data, and we've been kind of hinged on old data for the last 2-3 years. It is certainly not for lack of dedication from our staff, as well as the administrative team supporting that, and our kids. I mean, you hear something like, I leaned over to Mr. Wagman while Tatiana was speaking. We're recognized as the best behaved group that came through a field trip. Those aren't things that get celebrated. It's data that's old, and unfortunately our students aren't doing well in that area of the state exam. That doesn't mean that our students aren't doing well. We have anecdotally a lot of students that go on to do great things and are going on to post-secondary. And the way I always look at it is, I've always said since I've taken over superintendent, I want to make sure our students are prepared for that next step in life, whether that's the workforce, the military, post-secondary, 2-year, 4-year, wherever you look at. And so when I look at that, how do we gauge that? I primarily look at our students that are going into secondary, post-secondary, needing to take remedial courses. Are they not prepared for college? And that's typically not the case. They're prepared and they're doing very well in college. And so there's this dichotomy of what we're seeing when students leave us versus what they're doing when they're here with the test scores. And that absolutely, you use the word black eye, it is absolutely a black eye. From the AP exam world, which is where a lot of the data pieces come from, the AP exams, a few years ago, many years ago, 10 years ago, the AP exam was a requirement. If you took the AP course, you had to take the AP exam, and the district paid for it. As a funding mechanism, that was removed, and it became optional. I know a few board members, we've kicked around the idea of, do we put that back in place and make it a requirement? Philosophically, I disagree with that completely. And here's the reason. Because we have invested heavily in dual enrollment. And so most of our AP courses are also dual enrollment eligible. And what dual enrollment is that a student can take a course that may be AP eligible. Let's just use a course, has AP and dual enrollment. That dual enrollment course, the curriculum is given to Reading Area Community College. Reading Area Community College verifies that. There's a process for verifying the teacher as well. And then that course becomes a graduate course. So parents, students now have the opportunity to take the AP course. They can sign up to take the AP exam, and or they can sign up for the dual enrollment. If they sign up to take the AP exam, there's a fee associated with that test. And then they have to score a 3 or above out of 5 to be able to get that college credit. It's not a guarantee. If they take the course, do well in it, they get the credit from Reading Area Community College. And that is a reciprocal agreement with all the state universities, and the majority of the private universities are accepting those credits as well. So the risk benefit process of it, why would you pay to take an exam that you maybe don't get the points for and the credit for, versus taking a dual enrollment course and getting the 3 credits and then being able to have that as a transcript going on to post-secondary. The benefit and the risk analysis of that obviously is more in tune with going dual enrollment, and we've supported dual enrollment, and we pushed dual enrollment, and we invested more heavily in dual enrollment versus an AP. The downside of that is, philosophically, because we've done that, now we don't have the AP exam participation because we're funneling or encouraging kids to go down the dual enrollment pathway. I do not believe that we should force kids to take an exam just to make ourselves look better as a school district. That philosophically does not make any sense at all. We've always argued about state exams, PSSAs, and how can we make, why are we forcing our kids to take a PSSA? This is crazy. But then if we conversely do that as a district and force a kid to take an AP exam, that just completely flies in the face of what we stand for, which is kids. That's not good for kids. So that's the long, short answer of, did I miss anything, Mr. Volker? I see your hands going up, but before I turn it over.
Yeah, if you don't mind, obviously with something like this, it's complex, right? There are a lot of components that go along with this. And thank you everybody for coming out. You heard from me plenty about this. There are a lot of components that go into something like this. And I always struggle with how much information, is too much information, how much of it is overwhelming or saturating. But I do think one of the other bigger components that is worth noting is of the 13 in-person AP courses that we have, 9 of those are both AP and dual enrollment, as Mr. Pottinger was mentioning. You could do it as either. The way that these systems actually end up working is PIMS, the Pennsylvania Information Management System, where we have to submit all of our course data, isn't the most refined system. And as such, what ends up happening is all of these courses that are actually, it could be this or this, the system's not complicated enough to be able to do both. So what ends up happening is these courses end up getting coded to dual enrollment. So it doesn't look like we have 13 AP courses. So there has been a lot of communication back and forth between PDE and as we've been transitioning to Infinite Campus to try to find out, does Infinite Campus have a better way, our new student information system as we currently are in eSchool transitioning to Infinite Campus, does Infinite Campus have a better way to almost trick the PIM submissions into accurately reflecting what our courses actually are? And the long and short of it is, no, it's an issue with PIMS. So then we were back and forth with Pennsylvania Department of Education a lot this year, and we found out that there is an option to do a manual override after we submit our initial PIMS report. And so what we've done in my office is we've actually instituted a process and procedure that works with our PIMS coordinator to do a manual re-entry of our courses that are both AP and dual enrollment. So effective this school year, which would be then reported within next school year, we are now able to more accurately reflect these 9 courses as both an AP and a dual enrollment course. So in things like these types of reports, it will more accurately reflect our true AP course offerings. So again, there are many nuances that go into a report like this, but that is, I would say, one of the other bigger items that you as the board and community should be aware of. Again, I tried to communicate in the message that was sent out to the community that there are some concerns here, especially when we talk about Keystone exams. I would say, some of our performance in that area is a bigger concern than necessarily like what we're doing with our AP course offerings. We have, for the school district size that we are, a plethora of advanced placement opportunities for our students, whether it's in person or it's through our virtual academy. I wouldn't say that is an area of concern. Even our performance on the AP exams, we're holding up just fine. We have to better support students that need additional remediation as they leave the middle school to the high school. We do see some students falling off, and later in, I believe, this school year, at some point, we are going to be talking to you about how we can potentially increase the instructional minutes for our secondary schools without impacting the bottom line budgetarily, as well as the schedule for everybody across the district. So I think that's really the biggest area that we need to continue to focus on as a school district. We have the right curriculum, the right curriculum resources. We have the right types of instruction occurring. We have the right supports for those instructors now. There is no gap on the curriculum side. Our instructional practice has increased significantly, but those students that need additional support, and you need time to do that. And that's really, again, that missing piece to the puzzle. I will stop talking now. I'm sorry.
So, in short, there's a lot of pieces that we put into place 3 years ago when we saw these test scores. So those pieces have not been tested yet, and we should have updated results come fall, December time from.
So I understand though, did we not take Keystones last year?
We did last year.
Do we
The
have
data,
those results?
yes.
And how did that work out? Like, how does it compare to what was, I understand that what the new US News and World Report has is maybe 2 or 3 year old data.
Yes.
What does the new
2017,
data say?
2019. They're using data from 2017 to 2019.
Okay, so what does the 2021 data show?
You want me to go into that?
Sure, yeah.
Sure. So obviously, we have to keep in mind that throughout this time period, there was the pandemic, right? So there are many variables that get entered into, breaking this data down. What we were anticipating was a bigger regression than we saw. We actually saw an increase in our performance in literature and biology, but we still didn't see any additional growth in the area of secondary high school algebra 1, which is really where we need to focus. That's our biggest weakness as a school district.
And do we understand how those results compare to other schools in our surrounding community? Do we see those results at the same time?
So normally there's more transparency with that assessment data. This year, there has not been the countywide comparison data shared with school districts as there usually has been.
So, sir, something else to just make note of, right? If you've looked at how they break down their metrics, 40% of that score is based on AP results. 40%, 30% is based off of the number of AP tests you offer, how many of your students take them, and what your results are for that. 10% deals with underserved population and how they do on the AP test. So as a district, since our philosophy has been to push dual enrollment over the AP test because we don't reimburse or we don't pay for the students to take the test, we are automatically 40% behind the 8 ball because the kids that are taking it are just taking it. It's not like they're being forced to take it. They're not being mandated that they have to take this test. So, I mean, like, I'm going to use my daughter, for example. Samantha's leaving Brandywine with almost 30 college credits because we took advantage of dual enrollment through the entire thing because it was one of those things, 9th grade, you don't know where your kid's going to go to school. So am I going to do AP results that if you get a 4, maybe they take it, maybe they don't. If you get a 3, they definitely don't take it, even though you still pass. So you have to get 5s. My daughter's not a good test taker. So we went the dual enrollment route where she still gets the credits that are guaranteed to be taken at state schools. And luckily she's going to private university and they're taking all of them just as electives, not as actual classes. So it's one of those things where, as a board, I think we need to take a look at, okay, do we reimburse or do we pay for those tests, right? Because we're going to keep getting shellacked by US News and World Report if they don't change the way they run their rubric.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I guess, the rub, right? You fundamentally disagree with it, but every year there's going to be a report that comes out that drags our name through the mud. And how much do you want that to happen? I mean, that's a problem. And it's not just that, though. You have the 50%. Okay, I understand it. I understand test results are from 2017 to 19, and that's why I'm very interested in how we compare in 2021, because you can look flatly across the other schools in the county, and all of their test results are pretty much well above ours in each one of those areas. I get that the data is old.
In math, and in literature and biology,
proficiency,
we're holding up.
Stellar either. So I guess I understand that it's a complex issue. I'm just wondering, here we are a year later. I attended a similar meeting last year where it was like, we're going to do things. Let's fix it. I understand that the circumstances are that, yeah, it sucks. 17 through 19 is still the data that's being used, but here we are another year later, and it's worse.
But I mean, I think the other thing philosophically is, do you want us teaching the kids how to learn, or do you want us to teach them how to take a test?
Well, being able to take a test is really important in college. If you want to get through college, you better be able to take an exam.
Well, you have to be able to
take an exam. If you want to get into college, you
better
want to be able to take an exam as well, because that's how you get in.
Yeah, but we're not teaching them how to take a test in general. We're teaching them to take that test, right? How to take that AP test or how to take that Keystone test, because we've always been, and this has been going on, and I'm speaking as somebody that's been here for 12 years, right? That has always been our philosophy, is we want our kids to know how to learn, right? We could go the route of some of these magnet schools and just, have our kids just rote memorization and churn out, test results, but I don't think that's really necessarily what the community has wanted. And I understand your frustration, because trust me, when I'm getting a text message on Saturday afternoon from my brother-in-law crowing about how, bad we did and how good his school did, that stings, it hurts. But I do think that we have put a lot of things in place as a board over the last decade to try and make the experience better for our students, make sure that they're coming out as 21st century learners, and that they are positioned for success when they go into post-secondary or they go into the workforce.
Listen, I understand that education is a lot more than tests. I'm not saying that. But when we look at the exams are designed specifically to test whether the kids here are learning the content that the state is saying that they need to learn, and we're not performing well on them. And we can talk about rote memorization, but if the test we're struggling with is math, that's not a rote memorization thing. You either know the content and can test and that you understand the content, or you don't. So I'm just here to voice my frustration. Obviously, the rest of the community doesn't really feel the same way, so I won't take up much more of your time, but it continues to be an issue that I'm really frustrated with. And I might choose to do something else. I'm one person, but I can't take too many more years of this and have my kids in the district.
Could I just?
I think that we really need to, I'm in agreement with you, Mr. Womack. It's frustrating to see, it's frustrating to know I brought my kids into this district and get worried about it, but I feel like with these test scores, they didn't just sit here and say, we're not going to do anything about it. I've seen a lot of the administration put in effort and figure out how to make this change. And unfortunately, we had a pandemic, and now we have to wait probably another 3 years before you're going to see that change in result. Because it's not going to be next year that you're going to see these numbers skyrocket. Our kids are dealing with such learning loss right now that we don't know what is going to be the outcome in 5 years for some of these kids that are going to step up and not take these tests. So I don't love the results either, and I don't love having, there isn't a quick, easy answer. We can't turn these kids around and say, now you have to do math better. They're putting systems in place, and I think we just have to have a little faith that they're trying their best through change in a pandemic and putting new agendas out there for these kids. So there isn't going to be an answer I don't think that you want to hear right now, because I don't think that we know where we're going yet either with it. So.
Well, I guess I would ask then, if we've got when we get new test scores in, it'd be interesting to publicize those, to know what they are. And everyone went through the same pandemic, so let's see how they compare to other school districts. If we stayed flat or lost a little and everybody else lost a lot, well, then clearly what we did was working. If we went down a little and everyone else somehow managed to stay the same or go up, despite the same pandemic we were in, then we fundamentally got a problem with what we're doing. So I guess that's the end of my commentary.
I just want to add one concluding thought. I can tell you, and whether you trust it or not, that's up to you, that everything that we should be doing as a school district is absolutely being done. And I'm confident with the steps that we've taken, if we are able to add this additional instructional time, that is the exact recipe that every school district is looking for. We have the right curriculum, we have the right resources, we have the right instruction, we have the right support for that instruction, and then we'd have the right remediation for those students that may be struggling, as well as the enrichment opportunities for those students that are ready to advance. It just is going to take some time at this point. And we do that academic data presentation annually, where we do dive into everything, including surrounding school district data.
All right, and I do appreciate, Mr. Womack, you coming and voicing that, because as you pointed out, there's crickets, and that means a whole lot, the community members and parents speaking out, because without you guys, we wouldn't have success to take these strides. So thank
And
you
while
for
they're not here
taking this step.
tonight, they definitely voiced it to all of us here on the board. You are not alone, and we really do appreciate you coming out and wanting what's best for our kids. So.
Yeah, no problem.
Quick question. We got the same email last year in May with the report, they used the same numbers in the report? Because last year, I just went back and looked at my email and Tom sent out another, or one of you sent, we got like the same ranking email, so
Yeah.
they still haven't updated their numbers yet and what they're using is what.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
It's the same report for the last 3 years that continues to
continues.
bite us
Yeah. Okay.
until the new data
They're
comes
using
out.
that same data, so we
Correct.
just, there hasn't been updated data, so.
So, two quick thoughts, and I think this is a balancing act so that if we pursue these ideas, we wouldn't want to look defensive as a district. But this messaging and some of these nuances that help folks interpret and better understand the forward-looking performance, if you will, does it make sense to do a really well-crafted, thoughtful response to the Reading Eagle as a letter to the editor? Does it make sense to do a very thoughtful and well-crafted and detailed communication to U.S. News, World and Report and the research agency that they engage with to conduct this study to help them understand from the ground why, for example, relying exclusively on AP data for advanced courses may not be as smart as they think it is. To, for example, frame up our emphasis and success with dual enrollment. So that maybe over time, and I doubt just one voice like ours would shift their whole methodology, but maybe over time it would enlighten them that their standard model may not be getting at all of the innovative type things that districts like ours from time to time are able to do. So those are two thoughts. Again, they have to be really well crafted so that we don't look like we're just being defensive. But I think there's some real power in these dialogues and this content to help folks understand. It's not exactly as the headline makes it look.
My personal opinion is I think they're both good thoughts, but I think to your point, the letter to Reading Eagle would appear defensive. That doesn't buy you anything. Your thought about engaging U.S. News and World Report and their potential consulting agencies that they utilize, that's not a bad idea because apparently our best thinking here is what we're doing is better than the AP exam. So, we're one voice, but there's probably every other school sitting below a third in their state might be looking at the same thing. So we might be one voice among hundreds, and then maybe they'll consider it.
I don't think you just said something that made me. I wouldn't say we're better than the AP exam. I think we're just using creative ways to benefit our students. We're thinking of different ways to get our students where they need to be.
Understood. I mean, don't take what I said directly.
No, it
just
made me think that
right.
We're really focusing on our students and what they need, and not some of them don't need to go to college. Some of them just want to go to a 2-year college, and they have a year of it done or whatever. So, what?
So there's nothing wrong with the 2-year college.
No, I went to 2-year college.
No, that's you're right. I think we offer different pathways. Right? Like that's the thing. For a student that wants to take the AP exam, we have the AP exam pathway. For the student that wants to take the dual enrollment pathway, we have that. And we have multiple ways for them to find or accumulate credits that ultimately they're buying at a much discounted rate that will then help them when they get to college.
2/3 of our students, as the data, so 2/3 of our students go on to some kind of post-secondary.
Right. So 2/3, and we're reporting 16%, right, in terms of AP exam participation. So to that point, let's accurately reflect that 2/3 of our students are looking for post-secondary education or secondary education to some level. And maybe this dual enrollment represents that. I don't know what the numbers are, but if we go from 16 to 40, well, that would be great. I think your point's a great one, though. The only way you make a change is if you engage with the ratings agency.
Yeah, and we will keep everyone updated as soon as we have new test scores, and hopefully it's more transparent that we can have an accurate comparison to other districts and try and beat US News to the punch. So thank you again, Zach. All right, hearing, seeing no one else is out there. Moving on to.
I've taken up enough of your time.
Moving on to Board of Directors report. Can I get a motion in a second?
So moved, Sheets.
Second right now. So a couple items under the Board of Directors this evening. You have minutes from the April 4th meeting. Any questions on those or adjustments to be made? Second reading of policies, really no transition that has happened there. First reading of policies, the two I'd like to just point out to you, there's really not a lot of changes in maintenance, safety, property records, surplus of property. That's the red tag sale that we've done historically in the past. But if you look at 210 in particular, there's a slight change and it has some significance to it. It's on the last page of 210 and there's two items that have been added, they're in green. And it's establishing in our policy that students can self-medicate while they're on a field trip. So obviously that requires a lot of nurse oversight to make sure the students are capable of doing that. But that is something that we have not historically done, but other districts have. And with the issue of nurse shortages, and then having nurses on every field trip has become very cumbersome. So when we look at particularly our older students, this is a suggestion we're recommending to the board. It's linked directly, more importantly, to policy 210.1, which is the self-administration of medication policy. This policy really came out due to EpiPens and allowing students to carry EpiPens and inhalers if they needed those. But we have expanded that to include more of that self-administration of medication while on field trips. And so that last page, 5 of 6, really goes into that process of what a student must be able to do to demonstrate that they are able to do that self-medication. And then really the most important thing is that the nurse has the chance to do the evaluation and determine if that student would be eligible to do so. Primarily, again, for our older students, but something I just wanted to make sure that you knew as a board what was some of the shifts in the policy that were recommended this evening.
So maybe right now, if they're on a field trip, the kids can't self-administer an EpiPen or an Advil inhaler?
They can do that, yes.
Okay.
Those are the two things that were in the policy and continue.
Right on. I did also see in here that there was a auto injector that we would have one in the name of the school. Is that a current thing?
Yeah, we have those within the nurse's office.
Right on. Thank you.
Doing MD?
Yeah. Appointment of the school board treasurer for 1 year beginning July 1st, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023. Mr. Sheets, are you interested in continuing your role?
Yes.
Hopefully.
Yes, I have no problem continuing the role if everybody wants me to do it.
Very good. You can put that in pen there, Mr. Sheets.
There you go.
Just did. Crossed out currently and highlighted jump. And then the final one under E is to reaffirm KKLL, particularly Mr. Pratt's service, to be the school district solicitor for this upcoming year. That's a no change in the rate. There is no retainer with this. It is just a flat out rate. So we greatly appreciate the service that Mr. Pratt has provided for us the last few years and are very happy to recommend that we continue that partnership.
Moving on to committee reports. BCIU.
Good evening, thanks, Mr. Wagman. I did submit, like I do each month, a written report, just a couple of highlights that I wanted to draw your attention to. I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that the BCIU has acknowledged and celebrated its 50 years of service. Actually, the anniversary was last year, but they couldn't do the event to celebrate on the night of the board meeting, which was the 21st of April. there was a pretty special affair as it relates to Berks County public education. More than 100 attendees, including some dignitaries again, and some legendary folks in the world of public education around this county. All of the superintendents were there, some former executive directors were there, really just special tribute to the work and the service that these individuals and that organization has been doing over time in support of the 70,000 students in Berks County and all of the public school districts, the private schools, the CTCs, etc. So really special event. Two other quick acknowledgements. The Annie Sullivan Award occurs each year, and that is an opportunity for folks to nominate individuals across the county that work within special education. 14 people were nominated. An individual from Conrad Weiser was the winner this year, or the recipient, if you will, of the award, a gentleman who works with special ed high school age kids, primarily in Bethany's Children's Home. So again, another special event that acknowledges and celebrates the hard work and dedication of these special individuals. Two other quick things. So Ms. Bruner sent out an email a couple of weeks ago. I just want to make sure all of the board members received that and took 2 minutes. Literally, it won't take more than 2 minutes to click on the survey link and to just cast your vote or your ballot individually as a board member for the representatives from the other districts to the BCIU board that are up for re-election. It doesn't include Brandywine. I've got several more years of my term at the BCIU, but they look for full participation. And so I would just ask, if you haven't already clicked on that and popped a couple of radio buttons, please take 2 minutes to do that. It would be much appreciated.
I'll take that for the weekly update again. I think I put it in 2 weeks ago, but just so it's fresh in everyone's inbox.
That would be great. Thank you. And then the final thing from an advocacy perspective, and this may roll into what Mrs. Walliser is going to talk about with the Committee on Legislative Action, the Spring Ballot Appeal is declared for Tuesday, May 24th, and there's an 8-week campaign leading up to that, where again, advocacy initiatives are underway around 4 key areas in education: early intervention, which again serves about 60,000 3 to 5-year-olds across the state of Pennsylvania. We're looking for additional funding. Special ed is the second category. School-based mental health is the third category. And then the fourth category, personnel shortages. So a little bit different of an angle there from a business and operational perspective, as opposed to from an academic perspective. One other just quick thing, I thought you might want to mention this. I believe we may have voted on it already on an agenda. The BCIU board did approve a contract for roughly $2,000 for check customization as it relates to Power School. So I thought you might want to just quickly speak to that. I don't know, Nicole or Tom, and who would be most appropriate to talk about what was needed there.
I'm sorry, I read a personnel thing that just popped up.
So it was an agreement with Power School Group for professional services needed to provide check customizations for Brandywine Heights e-finance plus software application. It was roughly $2,000 investment over the next year.
Okay, that's you. Yep.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, I got a personnel issue. So we have the construction and capital reserve accounts. And last year our auditors suggested, and also student activities suggested, that we bring them all into the e-finance software. So we've been working on that. It's honestly taking longer than I would have suspected, but when you put it all into the e-finance software, you have to set up the check stubs. So when we go to print checks, so that's what they've been working on for us. So that's really kind of like a one-time cost.
Right.
To get all the formatting set up for the different accounts.
Thank you. Yeah. And just the next meeting of the BCIU board is regularly scheduled for Thursday, May 19th. That concludes my report.
Thank you. BCTC, Mr. Sheets.
BCTC held their regular meeting on Wednesday, April 27th at the West Campus. Really of note, you guys should have seen this in JOC brief, was really just the tuition increases for the CDL program. You know, it's anywhere from 4.5% to 5%. It continues to be one of our just biggest programs that we have over there for adult education. Little known fact, BCTC runs evening adult education classes as well, with welding and CDL really being our two biggest programs right now. Some other things of note, students of the quarter this quarter for Brandywine were Dante Blankmiller for diesel technology, Samantha Gripping for early childhood education, and that is at the East Campus. At the West Campus, we had Ethan Seidel in advertising art and design technology and Chase Hartline in precision machining technology. Another thing of note is the annual HOSA competition was held in King of Prussia. This is 100% self-serving because we had 3 students place in first place. Elijah Brown, I'm so sorry if I butchered that or mispronounced that, in health occupations. She did a presentation on community awareness. And then the team of Samantha Sheets, who, and there is my daughter, and Taylor Burns took first place in the medical health professional program on health education. All 3 of those students will be getting all expense paid trip to Nashville to compete in the international competition this June. Our next meeting is going to be on May 25th at the East Campus. Additionally, we also are going to be having senior recognition night. If any board members would like to attend, that'll be May 31st. It's a Tuesday. And just let me know. I can get you guys tickets if you want to go. And that concludes my report.
Perfect. I just said to Mr. Potter, that's something else that the test scores don't reflect. So that's
Exactly.
outstanding.
Yeah, and those 2 students that you talked about were not just Brandywine, that was amongst the whole BCTC.
Correct.
Right?
Yes. Yeah, they actually had multiple. So with the HOSA competition, you have multiple teams going down and competing at typically you have a regional and a state because they had a truncated schedule this year because of COVID. They just held the state competition. Normally you would then go to national and international. However, they got rid of national. It just goes right to the international competition. So when you go down, it's a 3-day event where you go down. It's it's a bunch of different team building exercises, educational opportunities, and then you actually do your competition. So I want to say there was 18 kids that went down from the medical health professional program, and then you also had an additional number of students from the health occupation that all went down there and competed as well. And that's, all the students in Pennsylvania that participate in HOSA, which is, it's health occupational 60-something, and then, but it's future healthcare providers. They haven't gotten around to changing the acronym yet.
So maybe I missed it, but did we put that on social media anywhere? That would be great to like blast out.
I know we recognize it, but I don't know how we push that out, to be honest.
We have Sam and Dale bring the medals. Sam was very excited.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Sheets.
Thank you. I was gonna say negotiation.
Oh, yeah, sure, while you're there.
Okay, I have nothing to report.
Perfect, thanks. Nicole, BEITC.
Yeah, so I have nothing to report. The next scheduled meeting is Thursday, June 30th.
Thank you. Cola, Mrs. Walliser.
Tuesday, April 12th, we met virtually, and Dr. Madonna from the Political Affairs Department at Millersville shared his perspective on different political issues going on in Pennsylvania education. In my report, I did link up some interesting articles based on some of the things that he brought to our attention. Of course, cyber schools and how much money is basically wasted. Public money, by the way, taxpayer money. One of the biggest charter schools in Pennsylvania paid for a Thanksgiving Day parade float, ABC float, okay? Of course, they wouldn't disclose how much they had to pay, so our education advocates started digging and investigating. In 4 months alone, they used their tuition money to spend $632,000 on target media to get their name and their school out there for advertising. To put that into perspective, that is, in a 4-month period, could have paid for 7 or 8 teachers, nurses, counselors, or librarians. So our property taxes can go up to pay for these cyber charter tuition bills that are not being held accountable by our legislators in any way, shape, or form. Okay, that's my little soapbox on that, sorry. My next area of concern is teacher salaries aren't keeping up with inflation. So the National Education Association is estimating that the average teacher salary actually decreased by an estimated 3.9% when you take into consideration of inflation. And this certainly couldn't come at a worse time because teacher job satisfaction appears to be at an all-time low. The survey also found that 44% of teachers said they're likely to quit and find a different job within the next 2 years. The average teacher salary for Pennsylvania is $71,479 from 2019 to 2020. 2021 to 2022, the average was $72,428, which is a 1.3 increase. Another wonderful news, legislation in Pennsylvania is considering vouchers again. It's bad for public education, it's bad for taxpayers. The current version of the voucher proposal could cost up to $170 million to school districts in Pennsylvania that are already underfunded. So edvoterspa.org is a great site that already has emails for you to blast out to your legislators. That's form. Once you get your name and your email in there, you can just click away and send it out based on the different topics that are going on. So I would highly suggest going on that site and voicing your opinion on these matters.
Perfect, thank you. You still have the floor there, policy committee.
I do not know, do we ever have meetings or is it just?
It's just the back and forth pre-policy discussion.
Invited to one yet, so.
It's just the committee to review the policies before they go to board. That's why we set it up.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I was just looking up the certification. You talked about the teacher shortage and the turnover and that 40% that are 2 years to, proposed, but I couldn't find it, but it's something like 1/3 of the certifications that PD once put out is now what they're putting out. So that the amount of people going into education is sharply dropping off. Yeah. So where that goes in the future, we'll see. But yeah, that's absolutely concern. One of the, from a legislative standpoint, one of the bills that are out there, particularly in the House right now, is to do a reimbursement for your college tuition if you graduate with a teaching degree and then stay with teaching for a certain amount of years afterwards. The state would then go back and refund. So it's a very innovative way, I think, to attract educators and then have them stay and retain, and then have a reward at the end of that. So we'll see if that goes through. But
there was a school down south where they actually, the college students that were enrolled to be teachers, if they worked for the school district for a certain amount of time, the school district then was paying partial for their college education, and ended up, those kids then went back and wanted to teach at that school, that did that, and it was a great way to, because they're having such a hard time getting new teachers to come and teach in their building. I know, how do you fund something like that?
Right.
On our tape budgets to begin with, but I think there's going to have to be some more innovative ways to get people attracted to the education world to become teachers, because it's such a really scary time.
Representative Rossi is the one that's putting that bill out there.
Okay.
Yes.
Building and Construction Committee.
So I've been giving the board updates in the weekly update. Some of it, we've pretty much wrapped up everything at the elementary school. Contracts have finally come through. And here, we're still kind of slowly chugging along. No tremendous news to report there.
Very good. Any additional board discussion? None. Your roll call, please.
Mrs. Ebner.
Yes.
Mr. Heck.
Yes.
Mr. Hohenschwald.
Yes.
Mrs. Hume.
Yes.
Mr. Reinauer.
Yes.
Mr. Sheets.
Yes.
Mr. Stevens.
Yes.
Mrs. Wallheiser.
Yes.
Mr. Reckman.
Yes.
9 yeas, motion passes.
All right, moving on to business and operations report. We get a motion and a second.
So those sheets. Second right now.
Thank you. So I would say May and June agendas are probably the longest. So I'll kind of breeze through them, and if we have any questions, I'll answer them. But to begin, we have items A through D is the bills reports. I know there were some questions that were answered via email for those. So if anybody has any additional questions, I can answer them now. Item E, to accept the financial reports through March 31st. I do want to point out in the construction fund, I think it was during our most recent budget presentation or questions about how much we made on the investments of the bonds. So to date, we have made about $116,000. I would say most of it was during the 19-22 school year, when we had the two series of 2019 bonds and the 2020 bond. And obviously interest rates were more favorable then. So just kind of a note on that. And then kind of get into item F, special education pupil services. Item 1 is to approve an agreement with the Richard Caron Foundation for a student assistance program at all 3 buildings for 22-23. You'll see a lot of these are renewals for the 22-23 school year. Item 2 is to accept the MOU between Berks County Head Start and the Brandywine School District, again, for the 22-23 school year. And items 3 and 4, these are waiver agreements with a district student for the 22-23 school year. These typically stem off previous settlement agreements for students. And item G, we have nothing. Item H is facilities maintenance. Number 1 is to ratify the change order for the playground. This is to relocate the playground. You'll see also attached was the project was originally approved back in September 2021. So you can see this is kind of a change order off that. It will be paid out of construction fund money, not general fund. Item 2 is to approve a proposal of Coast Elevator to upgrade the high school elevator obsolete door operating system at a cost of $29,250. This is coming out of capital reserve funds. And then item 3 is to approve the CoStar's proposal from Division 9 to install wall tile at the nurse's office and STEM classroom, all Ks at a cost of $500. We would probably use construction fund money as this was missed from PCBA plans, so it will not be general fund. Item 4 is to approve proposals with Division 9 to replace floor tile in the 4 areas. This is part of our floor replacement plan. The back gym corridors were missed in the JCBA project. Again, this will be capital reserve or construction fund money. Item 5 is to approve a proposal with Falcon Fire to do the fire extinguisher inspections for next year. This is a required yearly service for our fire extinguishers at all 3 buildings. Division 9 again. Item 6 is to approve the CoStar's agreement proposal from Division 9 to sand and refinish the middle school gym floor. Typically, we sand and refinish it every other year. Between construction last year, it was delayed, so we have to have a harder sanding at this time since the floor has some issues that the normal sanding and recoat will not fix. Item 7, approve
Just to
service.
interject real quick there, it's a different company than what we typically use. We're not happy with the previous company, so we went to a new company. Sorry.
Yep. So item 7, approve service agreement with Reading Bearing and Drive Solutions for the annual generator preventative maintenance for the 22-23 school year. Again, an annual renewal. This is preventative maintenance on the backup generator for all 3 buildings. Item 8 is approve the agreement with SSI for preventative maintenance on the high school dust collector fire suppression system for the 22-23 school year. Item 9 is approve an agreement with Xylem Incorporated, preventative maintenance of the high school sewer pumps. Again, these are all annual renewals, preventative maintenance agreements. And item 10 is to award the contract for the purchase of the following items for the Berks joint purchasing fuel bid for the 22-23 school year. So the commodity, the exact pricing will be awarded at a later date. It's basically based on the NYMEX Plus additive pricing. It's the lowest bidder. The hope is, and this is kind of a co-op of joint purchase with the county, that the prices will become more favorable. So we'll see what happens with that. Item 11, approve the CoStar's contract with AG Morrow Company to upgrade a set of doors in the high school and add interior locks to the middle school athletic laboratories at a cost of $6,700. This is an upgrade to the door hardware on a set of doors at the high school. The current hardware is causing issues and we need to convert to the newer style. The interior locks are for the middle school laboratories by the gym. We need to be able to lock the inner doors for security purposes or when the outside doors are unlocked for stadium events. This is part of the capital projects plan. And item I, we haven't seen this much this year, but approved the eye care benefits renewal through the PSEA Health and Welfare Fund at no change or increase in cost from the prior year. Item J, to designate CBIZ insurance services for the PA of Pennsylvania for the 22-23 insurance package. Annual premium costs are provided hopefully by the board agenda. So I did have a chance to meet or talk to our rep on Friday. Currently we have an 8% increase budgeted. I was hoping he would tell me, we could probably lower that a little. But he said, school districts in general kind of fallen out of good graces with a lot of carriers just because of the increase in claims, mostly cybersecurity and whatnot over the last few years. So that's kind of the reason behind the increase in our policy premiums.
May I, before we jump into budget, I have just a couple of quick questions, and I figure the flow will be better if I ask them now rather than after the budget discussion. Everybody okay with that? Yeah. Good. Okay. Couple of items you mentioned that things were missed in the KCBA design and plans. So can you just remind us? I know we've had a review of this quite a few months ago in terms of all the different categories that things fall in and which ones we end up getting stuck with versus which ones we can push back to them. Safe to assume that none of these can be pushed back to KCBA given that they were remiss in not addressing them initially in their design?
It was actually more cost advantageous for us to do this individually than to do it as a change order, pay the change order fees, and particularly with the tile work. It was essentially the same. Their tiler was terrible, and so it doesn't make any sense for us to go through them, pay the change order fees when we can use a tiler that we trust to come in and do the work. Same thing with the locks. The locks was an issue, so we did go through the process of going through KCBA and going through Gracie and doing change order. It's just do it for just get it done.
Okay, and they're sort of required as opposed to nice to have things.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Oh, the playground piece. Can you just again reiterate or frame up? So back in September, the board approved basically $145,000 investment in the elementary school playground, and then is this that we're being asked to approve incremental to that, or is it discount from that?
Incremental. So the playground, if you can picture it, when you pull into the elementary school, to the right there's a macadam small basketball court there. There's an really old piece of equipment there. That's where there was 3 different pieces that were going to be installed. 2 of them were going to be there, and then the third one's kind of going to be at the corner of the new building. The company came out to install it, and they did the one call. And when they did the one call, the place to locate it was right where the gas line was located. So we had to re-evaluate that, and so we moved it so that now all the playground equipment is in one nice area. Really, the majority of this cost is for the surfacing. So because we had one area and then a separate area, the separate area we're just going to reuse the rubber mulch and and kind of save the cost there. This newer area, we were gonna do that board, like that spongy clay, that really nice stuff. That was gonna be this area, and then the rubber reusable mulch was gonna be there. Since it's all together now, that poured area will now be the whole scope of that playground space, which is the cost.
May I get into that conversation?
Sure.
The original design called for 4-inch thick, and now it calls for 3-inch thick, with a note that the school district is going to add an additional shredded rubber. What, I don't understand that. We went from a 4-inch thick poured base to a 3-inch thick, and now we're gonna sprinkle other stuff on top. Is that what we're talking about?
Honestly, I'm not familiar with what you're asking.
What I'm getting at is the cost per cubic foot of the smaller area is now about $12 more than it was originally for a larger area. So I don't know how that works.
I can go back and ask him. I'm assuming it's probably because of the cost of material.
Kitty, I have some numbers written there. You might be able to follow what I'm saying.
Yeah, I see it here.
Maybe I scribbled them out. Oh, okay.
Mr. Ryan, maybe it makes sense to pull this, put it on next month, or is
So
there a
it's,
timing issue?
I mean, it's a red.
Everything's there, so
It's being installed right
it's
now.
been sitting there, and they had to delay it because of the weather. It was too wet to bring the gear in, so that.
Let me get some clarification on that, and I'll get back to you.
Yeah, okay. I mean,
I don't have that
I can
answer.
show you, I can talk you through it later, okay?
Yeah, no, I see exactly what you're saying, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, when I did this calculation here, we're sort of getting like an $8,000 punch in there somehow, more than it would have been otherwise, I think.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
and I'm not sure what this additional loose fill shredded rubber to be supplied and installed by the school district. I don't know. What are we doing with that? Where does that happen? On top of the 3-inch now, I would assume.
Where does it say that, Mr. Huffman? Where does it say that?
Yeah, where does it say that part?
It says it on the business H3.
Yeah, that's because that was the old.
That was the old.
That was the original.
That was the original, but we had one
So if
section.
you look at the safety turf asphalt play area, it was 2,480 square feet, 4 inches thick.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
now if you look at the newest one, where we're revising the area there, it's gone down to 1,628 square feet. So if you look at the turfing is 3 inches thick to be installed over the compacted stone base. So we went from 4 inches to 3 inches, but yet in the original here, it says we're gonna sprinkle something else on top by the school district.
So, couple things here. I hear what you're saying. I can answer some of it. I don't have the answer between why 3 and 4. I don't understand
Well,
that. I'll get the clarification. on that.
Okay, what
So-
I'm thinking about is, if we started off with 4, from what little bit of research I did there, the thickness of that is supposed to be, a safety thing here. If the kid's up here and it's this high, you need this much thickness. If the kid's here, then you can only do 3. So I don't know. I don't think the height of the equipment has changed. So to go from 4 to 3, how did that happen?
So my guess is that the 4 inches is over top of macadam. So they're actually gonna pour this over existing macadam.
The new location?
The original.
The original was
H3.
blacktop.
2,400
No,
air
it's going
cubic
to be
square feet.
over compact stone base.
So go to the second page, 2,480 and the 4 inch.
That's what I'm saying.
So that is poured over.
It says to be installed over compacted stone base.
I know that part of it was stone base, part of it was macadam. The actual structure, there's macadam there.
Okay.
So that's maybe why they had to do it thicker. I'll find out. And then the new space that definitely is brand new, and it'll be compacted stone. So I'm wondering if that doesn't need as thick because you're not going over a hard surface. That being said,
Well,
to answer-
both of them say over compacted stone, so I guess that's why.
Right.
Because the one where the existing piece is, that was compacted stone with that rubber tire stuff setting on top. But then where the additional piece was.
No, it says, I took it to be it says poured in place. I don't know,
Yeah.
when I hear that, it sounds like it's some kind of compound that's liquefied or whatever, so it's not just.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, well, both of them are saying the same thing.
Yep.
Okay.
So the first one of the $41,875, that's there.
Say it again?
The $41,871. 4-inch.
41, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that was the original pour in place.
Right.
That was for 2 out of the 3 equipments.
Okay.
The third one was going to get that shredded rubber.
Okay.
Okay. Now we're going to move that third one, no longer do the shredded rubber, and include it as part of where this existing 4 inches thick stuff was.
Okay.
That's the additional. Now to move that bigger piece and put it over there and have it included, so it's all one port area, that's the additional 25,000 to do that.
Okay, but again, are we having 2 different thicknesses in that area?
And that's why I'm going to find out. So the thickness, again, my assumption is part of that thickness area is because it's over top of macadam. This new area that's coming in, which is only 3 inches thick, is compacted stone. It's a brand new area.
If the new stuff would have been going in under compacted stone, which would have been a little bit more movable if somebody fell on that, or at that small, it would be a little bit harder.
Right.
You're going to put 3 inches on top of that, but 4 inches over here. I'm just looking at it from a safety aspect and any liability which may incur, so we keep cracking down on that.
Yeah, it's actually the flip flop. So it's 4 inches on the macadam,
Oh,
3 inches on the new stuff, 3 inches on the compacted stone.
okay, whatever you can figure out.
I'll find out. I'll do some research. We'll find out. Yeah, thank you though. That's good questions.
So again, may I ask, is there a reason why, until we are clear about what we're getting and what we're paying for, that this couldn't be tabled and then next month we'll ratify it when the answers to these questions have been made clear?
Do you want to tell hundreds of elementary kids that have been looking at that equipment that they're not gonna get to do it before the end of the year?
No, that's not what I'm suggesting at all. I'm suggesting that I don't feel comfortable voting on something that isn't clarified. It doesn't mean, Laura, work wouldn't continue. I mean,
You said we had to vote on it.
it's been underway all the while when we haven't voted on it. I'm just saying from no, it's waiting.
No,
We
it's waiting for
waiting
this
for this
approval. Everything has been delivered. They started drilling holes, and when PA1 came out, that's when they realized gas lines. They couldn't do anything further because of the weather. They couldn't get their machinery out because of.
But if last week the weather had been nice, they would have proceeded without board approval, and we would ratify it.
Correct.
So what I'm saying is, it's a little squirrely, frankly, from a policy procedure perspective, to be asked to vote on something when we're not sure exactly what that contract says and what we're getting and how much we're paying for it. So I'm not tabling the project. I'm just saying, from a vote perspective, we should be ratifying next month rather than voting now when it's not clear.
Well, if that's the case, the original 2480 square feet that we're talking about here would have been a cost of $50.60 a cubic foot, as I calculated. But the other side is $62.10 a cubic foot. I mean, you're talking about $12 basically a cubic foot more. Why would that be?
Which one's more expensive?
The
The new one?
original 4-inch thick area.
The new one is,
Okay. Would
no.
it come out at $50.66 a cubic foot unless I screwed up the math? I don't think so. And then the 3-inch area we're talking about now is going to be $62 a cubic foot.
So the new area is more expensive.
Yeah.
Well, it did say in here the price was good until August 6th, so,
That was the original one, I think, right?
Yeah.
yeah, which you said was less expensive, or no?
Yeah.
Prices increased.
We're trying to prove something that was post-dated then, predated.
We already approved this back in.
Yeah, but now we have a change with it.
Yeah.
I mean, something just doesn't add up to me. I'm sorry for the confusion if anybody else is confused, but I'm just looking at it from a safety aspect. When I see 4-inch thickness rubber and I see 3-inch thickness rubber, I don't know how that relates to any safety issue that we may have.
Was based on how far you are falling.
Right, and that's
Right, so a 3-inch is 7 feet, a 4-inch would be maybe 8 feet. But again, just throwing numbers out there, but I mean, it's a valid point, like,
Is
you
it a
know,
smaller playground that doesn't require?
exactly, is the
There is
equipment
this-
shorter?
this
I think
little-
it had mostly to
What's
do
going on there,
with
you
the
know?
height of where the kid could fall from.
So
Yeah,
my question, and I hear what everyone's saying, but what's our alternative? We have playground equipment that is currently sitting there that we can't do anything with. I guess that's my question. I hear what you're saying, Liz, but it's literally there. It's not like we're waiting for something to deliver and things can be changed. The pieces are sitting there, so there's literally nothing short of not installing stuff.
If we don't approve it, do we return it and get it? Don't have to pay for it? Or are we stuck with it?
Well, judging by Mr. Pratt's face, I would say that's a hard no.
So it's either we approve it or we pay for it. Anyway.
I said we could case it on the phone. Call him up.
This is the case.
This was the case of
Yeah.
this is the gas line issue.
That was a gas line.
But the gas line, whose job was it to identify that the gas line was there and that we shouldn't build a building or a playground over top of it?
Yeah, he had one call and whoever was in charge of the project, so I guess I would.
Yeah, but you can only rely on the drawings, so that's an old school, so sometimes those, Mr. Wetzel could speak to it, sometimes those pipes are not included on drawings because it was done years before they found that to be important, so that may not be on drawing, and PA1 call, that's their job to come out and.
That's another good reason for having facility drawings that are updated anytime there's changes to the property.
Now we know.
So as built.
So that's my question,
So what
if we don't approve it?
What does this do for the project? Right, so if we delay this, if we table this for 1 month, for 30 days, what does it do for the project? Do we lose our slot? I mean, I think it's one of the six, was this gonna be installed before the end of the school year?
They're on site right now.
So again, I'm not suggesting we delay the project. I'm suggesting we delay the vote because the documentation seems to be perhaps not 100% nailed down. I'm more than happy to support the project, although I hate the fact that we're now spending $170,000 for an elementary playground for a couple hundred kids. But I'm not suggesting we kill the project. I'm just saying ratify it next month. That doesn't mean work has to stop. That means we're entrusting the folks managing the project to dot the i's and cross the t's that Mr. Hefner is asking about, and ensure that by the time we go to vote, the documentation supports what you asked them to do and the price you agreed to pay.
And then if it doesn't?
Well, they can immediately correct it. I mean, if what we're identifying here isn't correct the way it was written, maybe this is just a typo, I don't know. But, you know, if they can go ahead and put in what they think they're gonna go in if we approve this, but then if it hasn't really been correct, who's checking this? Who's making sure that it was installed correctly? Who's inspecting it? I don't know if this is a state inspection. I mean, what do we need for school inspection for the health and safety of kids?
But our insurance company comes out and inspects that.
So we don't have swings anymore, right? Why don't we have swings anymore? Because it's probably a safety hazard, and that was the decision made not to incorporate swings. So this is a safety issue too. You're talking about a free fall onto a surface, which may or may not be suitable. And then we have a liability problem. Am I correct, Mr. Pratt?
You could.
You
could. So, Mr. Pratt, would we be able to continue having the project go on without a vote this month, ratifying it next month?
I have no idea what the contractors would do based on the fact that you did not vote on the change order. I don't know what the contract states in regard to that, but in the case, if you don't approve a change order,
They don't change it.
they don't make modifications.
Which then leaves us with the fact that the project would still not be completed.
I don't know what the time period would be to install a playground.
That's yes. That's yes.
It took us, we ordered this in August, and it took us till now to get it scheduled. So if they leave,
Yeah, we don't know when we'll get it back.
So is our concern the expense, or is it concern the specs on the bid?
My concern is the spec, personally.
Yeah, I don't like the expense, but my concern is the spec.
Yeah. You're going from 4 to 3, like.
So then is
what's the logic?
Could it be a conditional approval with that clarifying piece? Mr. Pratt? A conditional approval, in other words.
Let's listen to this.
Not knowing what the agreement is for the installment of this, there's usually language that does allow for continuation of projects. But yes, you could, I mean, if you're not worried, you're worried about the money, I understand. If all you need is an update on what's going to happen and whether or not it's going to be a different way, it's not a reason to not agree to the change order. It's just that now you give direction to whoever the construction manager is or whoever's running this to say, we want to make sure what's going on. Can you provide that information to us right now? They're going to move forward with the project, but you want to make sure that that everything's being taken care of to your liking, and that can always be done as the project goes along after you change the change order. But the gist of the change order is to make changes here, whatever you want it to be. I mean, if it's a situation, you can just get them to guarantee that this is what's going to be done and this is why it's being done this way. But can you do a conditional? Sure, you can do a conditional, but then what?
I mean, my concern, Ben, is honestly, many moons ago, when we did the play set, when we created the intermediate school, there was a matrix for how much X you need for Y, right? Like how much depth you need in order to keep a kid from breaking his neck if he falls from this high, right? So,
or at least hopefully prevent.
Exactly.
Can't prevent everything.
Always hedging, that's as a consummate professional. But, I mean, it is, it is though. I mean, that's a concern. Like, you changed it from 4 to 3. Why did you change it from 4 to 3? I think that's a very valid concern and answer. Sure. And incidentally, I honestly, I don't not care about the money, but I mean, the money is 100% secondary to the fact that, like, I don't want somebody shortchanging me, and we have a kid that falls, and now they're a paraplegic or a quadriplegic because somebody decided they were going to try and jam us up by giving us the wrong stuff.
But the situation is the original contract, based on the quantity of rubber, was $50.66 a cubic foot for my calculation. But now for the 3-inch, it goes up to 62. I don't understand. They're going to supply it at the same time, I would imagine.
I'm imagining because when they bid it back in August, the price of goods and gas and everything else and oil, look at the difference from now August to now. That's explainable.
That I could understand, but I'm just trying to make sure that we get the right thickness for all the
Height is
aspects
the
that
same
Mr.
on
Sheets
each
so
piece of
eloquently
equipment.
discussed.
The fall height is the same on each piece of equipment.
Okay. So does it require a 4 or 3?
It doesn't say, it just says the fall height. They're all between
How
8
tall?
foot
I mean, how
and
tall is the equipment? What's the highest fall height?
8 foot and 8'2".
Okay, so I mean,
short.
Yeah. So they're talking about 3 inches of base, and then an inch of like ground or rubber mulch.
So, with
I mean,
all
is
due
that-
respect, we are in the weeds. Like, who is the project manager for this project? And if they're not here or can't speak to these answers, then in my opinion, this gets tabled. This is not for the board. Like, our job is not to figure out fall heights and all that kind of stuff. It's to ensure that what we're approving makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense to enough of us, then it should be pulled and we move on. And it stinks if the kids can't get what we promised them, but much better to be adults and wait for the right time to give them what's safe than to give it to them and have some tragedy happen, or for us to overpay on something.
Just
Can
trying to get the
we
answers to be
find out
ratified.
the answer and then do an email vote, like once we know?
No, you
We don't
can't
have
do
to
an
wait.
email vote.
Can it be ratified yet?
Can what be ratified?
The
What are
change
you
order,
ratifying?
the change order.
Well, yes, you can ratify the change order if approved by the board members, correct?
So we can do the, proceed. I'll get the email information, share it out with the board, and then we just ratify it in June.
I'm sorry.
I'll get the information, share it out with the board, and then we'll proceed, and then ratify, as soon as, and then ratify it in June. Okay. Fair enough? That way we still have to install it while we have the opportunity.
I would suggest that what you're saying is we're gonna basically table this then and then do it in June, or you could tell the contractor to proceed based on the conditions that we've identified here, and if they can give us an answer, the sooner they can give us an answer, the sooner we might be able to move forward with just a, I don't know, can we vote on this over there?
I'm trying to call
No.
I'm trying to call him and text him right now.
Actually, have it.
But yeah, if we
We have
we'll
to
just
hold a
proceed.
special meeting.
We'll
We're gonna have a
proceed.
special meeting,
Yeah,
but you can't vote over the internet.
we'll just proceed.
We're voting on Zoom.
I'll find out about the
Yeah.
4 inches.
Yeah, okay.
We don't Zoom meetings.
You see?
Yes,
Oh.
well, actually, no, you can't hold a Zoom meeting because those days are gone.
Hold a special meeting, you need 3 days of advertising for a special meeting, we'll come in for 10 minutes, one way or the other, and get it done.
We only need 5 people here.
The wording already says to ratify.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, so,
You just push it off till June. I'll get the answers and get back to them and just continue the project.
So we need a motion to pull that out of this.
Motion to remove item, what is it?
H.
Eight?
I will table an item.
Are we tabling it or are we gonna remove it?
What do you want to do?
Table
Okay, then that's the motion you need to make.
it. Motion to
Remove
table.
it, yeah, we just have sheets and right now we're just removing from the original.
Yes, you can have the original motion and the second to modify the.
Before you do that, can I take a phone call?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
That would be wonderful.
Take it.
Mr. Del Marco, would you mind talking about the budget?
well, I'm sorry, I had a couple other quick
Go
questions.
ahead.
Sorry to-
Go for
to,
it.
like,
You got plenty of time.
Okay, so,
All you got is time.
yeah, see, now we can stop. Okay, so number 2, the elevator at the high school. So we're being asked to approve Otis elevator to upgrade these high school elevators because the door operator systems have become obsolete. Help me understand, the building is less than 20 years old, am I close? And the elevators that we bought 20 years ago, the door hardware is obsolete.
Does it work?
Can we, like, Mr. Wetzel, sorry
The
to put you on the spot,
controllers-
but can you help us understand?
Yes, the controllers for those are obsolete. They're no longer manufacturing the parts for them due to every other chip issue in the world. And there's a limited time frame that they have extra capability to produce, or not produce, provide us with those. They're estimating that we're in the last year of availability for having the door operators. If it fails, we would have to totally redo the elevator at the time it fails, which could take a couple weeks to order the parts, plus the time to install them. So it's kind of right now, we're in a dead zone with being able to get parts. If it died tomorrow, we might not be able to get the current parts. We might, I'm not sure. They're just telling us we're within a 1-year window of them being completely obsolete.
Okay,
So
so,
we're trying to be proactive and do it this summer while we have shutdown time and get ahead of the curve.
okay, helpful, thank you. So this $29,000 investment in the door hardware, what is the elevator itself worth? So in other words, it's like you have to change your transmission on the car. So if the car's 20 years old, it doesn't make sense to do that.
If you
How much more life do we have out of the elevator itself?
Elevator itself's not a problem. It's inspected every year as required, pressure testing every 3 years, et cetera. If we have to replace the whole elevator, I guess be at least $160,000 to $180,000.
Okay, so the life expectancy of the elevator itself is what?
I don't foresee an issue with that. I mean, all the inspections, everything else, you should be able to get 60 years out of an elevator, hopefully.
Okay.
It's
So
just- it's just right now, it's electronic side.
$30,000 investment to get another 50 years or
Yeah.
60 years makes sense.
Or another 30 or 40 years, more likely. Total.
Okay.
But yeah,
All
it's just, it's obsolete. That part of the controls is obsolete. That's the part that controls your operators, calling the floors, all that stuff.
Okay, thank you. The flooring of the middle school gym, so I think it's item number 6. So over the years, I can't tell you how many times this board has been asked to approve an expenditure in working on the middle school gym floor. It's gotta be 5 or 6 in the last 10 years.
So it was every other year.
It's every other year for basic maintenance.
Okay, for maintenance, but
As
we've
for-
also invested in above and beyond basic maintenance multiple times, correct?
Two big ones. One was when the facility was flooded out during the 2011 construction project. That was a case where the insurance basically paid for a new floor. And we also had the floor damage, maybe 6 years ago, where they had to come in and totally drum sand and redo the floor due to dragging stones or whatever it was across the whole floor. Those were the two big items. Other than that, it's been every other year maintenance.
Okay. And the company switch is because the last time this work was done, we weren't thrilled with how it came out.
Yeah, we're looking for an alternate vendor. There are not that many vendors that do floor finishing anymore. A couple went out of business over the last few years. There's 2 or 3 bigger ones out there. There's 2 or 3 of them I'm aware of. We talked to different other facility managers in the Berks, Schuylkill County area who they're using. This company's done a couple floors for other schools. People were happy with it, so I reached out to them for a quote.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. I appreciate it. I think that covers all my questions. Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on to item K. Not too much has changed since we had the budget meeting in mid-April. Let's to approve the 22-23 general fund proposed final budget totaling $35,897,730. It's currently reflecting a 3% real estate tax increase of 1.0326 mils as per Business K, which is the PDE 2028, which is the official form that it's required to be on. Some notables, again, this is the proposed final budget with a 3% tax increase as the worst case scenario. If the budget remained as is, this would be an approximate real estate tax increase to the $118. Again, that's, the average assessed value of the $115,000 that we talked about. The increase can be adjusted to a lower rate, however, it cannot be increased at final budget in June. So again, between now and June, we'll work on making additional reductions to our expenditures, and we'll know a lot about any revenue increases. For example, I know today we did find out we get money every year from the state. Doesn't really decrease the tax, but it does help offset and decrease the taxes for those who have the homestead farmstead relief. Every year we get slot machine tax revenue. Not that I say, advocate people to gamble, but it does, help offset some tax increases to those homestead farmstead properties, which is over 50% of our parcels within our district. So typically, on average, I think last year we got about 780,000. And I had budgeted 790,000. This year they kind of shopped us with $990,861. So all things being equal and just the assumptions being correct, that would be about $293 per household. That would have a reduction on their tax bill compared to about $230 that we see annually. So that would help. And then just something to note. The final budget scheduled for adoption on June 13th at 6 p.m. The budget will be available to the community for public inspection on our website. And if anybody needs a hard copy, they can always contact us and we'll make one available to them.
So I did have a chance to speak with the gentleman that is in charge of the playground. He said that without it specifically right in front of him, he said these do fall within the fall zone parameters. He said his belief, without it right in front of him, was that the 4 inches, the compaction of 4 inches is greater than what it would be for 3 inches on the stone. So when you have the stone base, you only need 3 inches. When you go over top of the macadam, you need the 4 inches. But he's going to confirm with me in the morning.
Are we going above the macadam? Is that what you had said earlier?
Yes.
So then we would expect to see the 4 inches.
Correct.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So he'll confirm in the morning. We'll ratify it in June. Be done. Okay.
So where does that stand now? Are we tabling it or?
We'll still table it and then just deal with it.
Okay.
So you need a motion to pull that portion.
do that,
from your-
right?
We did that already.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, welcome to that.
I didn't hear it. I didn't hear a second. I didn't hear a second.
You heard the motion, though, didn't you, Mr. President?
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
Well, we modified the
original.
The original.
Yeah.
Yeah, master right now.
Sheets in right now.
So to kind of recap, our shortfall is currently at 342,000. For the proposed final purposes, you'll see on that handout, I did put 150,000 from teasers and then 192,000 of unassigned fund balance. So when you submit it to the state, it has to balance. So right now, that's the two uses of fund balance to balance the budget. But obviously, that can change between now and June. So that's all I have. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Sorry, Nicole, I thought you were done earlier. My apologies.
Sorry, I'm done now. I think.
Fair enough.
No, we're good.
Is there no more word on the state on how much we're gonna, 600 grand was tossed out, is a possibility?
Yeah, nothing yet. Honestly, if we have that by the final budget, I would be surprised. I mean, I wish I had better news, but.
So don't we have, money set aside for state budget delays?
We do.
Okay. So wouldn't it make sense to plug the hole with that money if we're waiting for this state budget money to come and it's not coming and we have earmarked money for that exact purpose?
So I can check on that from when it was actually established in substance and find out what the criteria was. So I don't know if that delay means if they don't approve it before June 30th, or, but I think it's if it's not approved on June 30th, that we can use that money. So I think that's why we typically don't use that money, and then we go the unassigned route. But I can double check on that.
Okay. And I ask this question every year about this time. So each year, this district financially kind of has this pattern of coming in with a favorable variance at the end of the budget year, of anywhere from 600,000 to upwards close to $1 million. Can you help us understand, based on what you see as of today, May, or even as of April, or whatever date you have access to good numbers from, what is that surplus favorable variance kind of looking like at this point?
It's not going to be 800,000 or $1 million. I would say, just looking at it now, I would say transportation costs, they are about 300,000 more already at this time last year. So that's definitely a significant increase. Just our general operating costs, due to inflation, has gone up. So that's something I'm really keeping an eye on. I'm actually looking at it right now. So with that, and then, I mean, they just reported today, diesel prices are the highest in all-time history. So that has me a little concerned.
But fuel is contracted, correct?
Yes, but there's not a set price. So he buys it and he gets a discount because he buys it in bulk. So it's less than what we pay at the pump, but as that climbs, we're still climbing, but we're still a little bit cheaper. But from what we budgeted to what we're actually paying is still significantly higher.
Diesel is not included in the contract costs.
Okay.
We pay for that individually, but we purchase that through the bus company because that's part of their.
Okay, so our financial risk is insulated as it relates to the transportation contract. Our financial risk is not insulated as it relates to the cost of fuel. Okay. So this is a tangent topic from today's budget, but I heard that news this morning too about diesel, and it made me think that it might be appropriate for this group of folks to start talking about what we might want to do to plan for and set money aside for the spike in fuel costs, which it appears we're not going to be able to avoid. So rather than just acknowledging, yep, prices are going up and deal with it when the time comes, shouldn't we be setting aside X dollars, whatever the amount appropriately should be, to create a little savings account to help us pay for future fuel increases that we know are coming?
It's a good idea. We can take that into consideration when we do the fund balance. When you approve the budget in June, final budget, you'll approve the fund balance allocation as well. So that'd be a good opportunity to carve a little bit of funds out there for that access.
And you mentioned transportation expenses are like 300 grand more than last year. Some of that has to be because we weren't busing kids through COVID when they were studying virtually.
Correct.
But we knew in our budget that, I mean, did we not budget for full transportation for this school year?
We did for this school year, and then what happened last year is we saved on as far as the fuel costs, but we still pay our contractor the full amount had we been in session 180 days to get our subsidy, the full subsidy.
Right.
So essentially, last year we really did not save too much on the contracted service piece. We saved on fuel costs.
Right.
But this year we did budget relatively flat from last year to this year. But I don't think anybody could have anticipated the increase in fuel costs.
Okay, so when you say transportation is up 300K, it's really fuel related to that transportation is what's up.
Yep.
Yeah, because that transportation figure, I mean, we know to budget the full amount every year.
Yeah, we have about a 2.5% contractual increase every year.
Yeah, okay. All right, so having said all that, what are you projecting? Not 800,000, what are you projecting in terms of favorable surplus?
I would say less than $500,000. I mean, I'll know because a lot of things last year, like even transportation, for example, is projection versus you pull in last year's numbers versus this year's numbers. The period in which we paid things last year are significantly different than we paid this year because we were hybrid and we're not in session. So it's really hard to project, say, out the last 2 years. But I would say it's closer to that happening.
Okay, all right. But still, in my mind's eye, $500,000 at the end of the year is great news. I mean, that number could be zero,
Yeah.
right? So $500,000 of a favorable variance is great news. And to me, that should be able to help offset some of the concerns we have with having to tax our way into next year's budget.
Yeah, and a lot of it is we're not fully staffed. I mean, just take maintenance, custodial, or paras, for example. So it's not that we over budgeted. I mean, you never want to exceed your budget, but a lot of times it's the areas that we anticipated being fully staffed and we're just not.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where a lot of the savings are. It's not that we're like overtaxing or have that intended surplus. It just that's not working.
Right. Right, but that's for $500K of free cash, basically.
Fund balance.
Yeah, fund balance that now is available to be allocated to some of our other expenditures. Yep, okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Anything else? Get a roll call, please.
Can we go separate?
We have to vote on the
on the
table
budget.
one of these.
What's that?
Do we have to vote on one on the table first, or? It's actually been
That was pulled out. That was, the motion was revised to remove that, table that.
To remove that?
Yes.
Okay.
And so, Ms. Hune, you are asking what?
For item K, the budget to be voted on separately, please. And one more quick question, I'm sorry. Health insurance, the health consortium. Can you reiterate, I know you shared it with us at the budget meeting. Where did we land with what did you budget versus what actual is going to be for the forthcoming year in terms of percent increase, and how much of a cost savings versus what we thought we'd have to invest do we gain?
Yeah, so offhand, I'll look. I think we came in at 1.5%. We budgeted 4%, so that was a savings of 570,000 savings.
So in your second bullet there on page 5, you reference the school board and district admin will continue to work towards making additional reductions to our expenditures. Right there, that's a $70,000 reduction.
Correct.
Okay.
But that was in the salary benefits presentation on the 19th.
But the the budget, the $35.897 million budget number hadn't been reduced by 75,000, right? So if we initially in our draft budgeted 4%, now we know that plug should be 1.5%. The net result of that saves us roughly 70 grand. That means we've just gained that's a favorable gain of 70 grand. That should be a minus somewhere.
Yes, so that happened between February 21st and I believe April 19th.
So you're saying you've already accounted for that in the numbers? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, these numbers
And we
today,
increased-
right?
Yeah, we increased support staff, which increases Peters, so kind of offset that full benefit to hundreds. So the savings with our health insurance premiums really got offset by increasing Peters. We increased the hourly wages of support staff.
Okay, all right, helpful to know that that's where those dollars flow to. Okay.
Right, Mr. Sheets, would you like to amend your motion again to pull out letter K?
Is it K or is it L? Whichever one it is. K.
Kick you up.
A second. Wait a minute. I'm seeing K, which is a service level agreement for Berks County Intermediate Unit. Is that the one you want to pull out?
You are looking at probably an older agenda.
Oh, really?
KQ for 2022, 2023.
Oh,
That was part of the
okay.
budget.
All right, excuse me.
It's the last item on
Oh,
the
good.
original draft. I
And we removed item H10. So maybe that was it. No, that wouldn't matter. I'm not sure.
So we removed the playground piece, we tabled that, which is H1. And now we are voting separately, removing K and voting on that item separately. Are there any other requests?
Which item are we on first?
Oh, we didn't get that far yet. All right, so hang tight. I love the enthusiasm though.
Our board secretary is like, I don't know.
All right, you good, Andrew?
I am so great.
All right, okay, so now we are going to vote on all items except for K. What? Well, H1, yes, that was removed as well. So H1 is not on there, okay?
H1 is tabled.
It's tabled,
So
correct.
it's off the agenda.
Yes.
We motioned to table, but don't we have to vote on that?
No, you don't have to vote on that because the motion has been amended and seconded.
So what we're currently voting on is everything except for K. Could I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Haffner,
Yes.
Mr. Hohenschel,
Yes.
Mrs. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Reitnauer,
Yes.
Mr. Sheets,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Mrs. Wallheiser,
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhart,
Yes.
Mr. Wagner.
Yes.
9 yeas, motion passed.
All right, now we were voting on letter K. Can I get a roll call for that, please?
Mr. Hohenschel,
Yes.
Mrs. Hume,
No.
Mr. Reitnauer,
Yes.
Mr. Sheets,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Mrs. Wallheiser,
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhart,
Yes.
Mr. Haffner.
No.
7 yeas, Mr. Fine.
It's okay. Yes. It's all right, I'm easy to forget. My mom said I had a face for radio.
7 yeas, 2 nays, motion passed.
Well, that was a lot of fun.
All right, superintendent's report, can I get a motion in a second?
So moved. Eisenhart. Hume seconds.
All right, so we have, two presentations we have to do this evening. The first one's going to be Dr. Reese talking about special education, because we have to present to you a comprehensive plan for special education. It is a requirement that is part of
Don't worry about that, I'll do it in a nutshell.
Department of Education.
Like to hear.
She is going to share the couple slides with you.
Okay.
Take it away, Dr. Reese. Take it
Am I
away.
putting it up anyway?
That's not me. Don't look at
You
me.
just go. We'll turn it off.
Yeah, we don't need it. We're good. Okay, so the special education plan. There is a presentation that's linked in there, and it's really short, because I knew by the time we get to this point, we did not want to go through 68 pages of the special education plan. So Pennsylvania Department of Education oversees the special education, and they're responsible for making sure that we're compliant and we have an appropriate program within the district. So based on chapter 14, we redo the special ed plan every 3 years. This special ed plan will be from July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2025. So what is the special education plan? It's our commitment. It's an action plan and our commitment to ensure that we are providing efficient, appropriate, and solid services for our special education students and those who need the extra specially designed instruction. It's also describes the special education program and all the services. So it describes all the services and the programs that we're doing for our K through 12 students. Now, how do you navigate the special education plan? There are 14 components, major components that are within the plan in the 68-page document. So it's not an easy plan to navigate. So what I did is I made you a cheat sheet. So during this cheat sheet that you have here, it's a couple of pages, but each component of the 14 components, I have listed with the page numbers. And then under each part, I have a brief description of what that component means and what it is sharing within the plan. It's linked right under special ed planning. Special ed plan is 68 pages. In the overview is the cheat sheet to explain to you what each component is and what it means. And then the presentation is just what is the special ed plan. And again, it's our action plan and it's our commitment to our special education program. And then it describes in pretty good detail what procedures, what programs, and what services we are providing within the district. Does anybody have any questions? And here's the document. It is listed there for you. It needs to be posted for 28 days for review by the school board and also by parents and the community. When we come back in June, we will ask that you approve the special education plan, and then we'll send it off to the state. The state will review it, and if they have any recommendations, they'll let us know. Sometimes they just want us to add a few things, or they say, hey, everything is great. So all our programs are in here. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me, call me, and I can answer anything that you may find as you're reading through the report. Any questions now? And I'd be happy to pass this around if you want to use this document. Does anybody want this?
Dr. Reese, just high level. So clearly this is an exercise to meet the mandates and reporting requirements. Probably also helpful for you and your team to have the chance to dig deep every 3 years. Having done this for multiple years, multiple organizations, what differentiates Brandywine, if anything, in terms of what that plan might say about what we do particularly well or uniquely to serve our special ed community?
I believe that the team collaboration that we have. So it's not just me and the special education teachers. We're working very closely with all the administrators, with central office, collaborating what are the programs, what are the supports, or the interventions that we can put in place to ensure that our students are in the least restrictive environment. As you see in the plan, we went from outside districts, we dropped by 24%. It doesn't sound like a lot, but that's huge when you look and see your disproportionate. We're not disproportionate in any of those areas as far as out of district or out of the classroom for more than 80% of the day. So I think just that collaboration, we have a solid team that really cares about our students. So we're looking at, we want the best for our students and everything we can do to keep them in that regular classroom without pulling them out. So I think that is one of the key things for Brandywine.
Thank you.
Okay, we want to keep our students here, and if everyone doesn't work together, then our students are kind of pushed out to the side a little bit. So all the intervention, it's not just your special education, we're doing it for our whole student body. Did that answer your question?
Absolutely helpful. Thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions about the program? The services? Well, we do have a full team, which is very helpful. So we don't just have learning support, we also have learning support, obviously to support life skills and emotional support that helps, again, take care of our students that are here based on their individual needs.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Reese. Thanks for summarizing.
I didn't want to keep you too long. If you want me to go through that 68 pages, I'd be happy to. It's only important in life.
I'll come down tomorrow morning.
We'll keep you posted.
So next up, 21, 22, end of year goals, just to kind of recap the process. So we create goals at the beginning of the school year. Mrs. Eisenhart is the goals representative. I work closely with her. We present those goals in August. Those goals then are reevaluated in the middle of the year before I get there. All the administrators' goals then are driven off of this district goal document. Mid-year, I provide a board update to the board of where we are, and then I meet with all the administrators, go through their evaluation process, and now we're at the end of the year. So I like to always do a review of what we accomplished. You have in front of you on your link a summary page. So the goals document is multiple pages. It's highlighted in different colors for the different segments. There's 4 segments for the 4 goals: communication, collaboration, instruction, safe and supportive learning environment, and then organizational efficiencies. Within those sub-bullets get adjusted every year. So just to touch base on a few things as for sake of time, look, I had everything highlighted, just so you know. But just for sake of time, a lot has occurred this year. I give a ton of credit to the administrative team, to the entire district, to the teachers. There has been a lot of goals that were put in front of this team this year, and I believe we hit them all and did a very nice job of moving the district one step forward in light of all the negativity that we have right now with U.S. News Report. Website transition to a new website, transition to a new communications tool. We're transitioning to a new student management system, which Mr. Volker talked about earlier, which is a huge undertaking. A lot of things on that communication technology side to help better communicate. Now a social media platform with our website, it's an app-based website. So a lot of ability to connect with our families and community a lot better. From the instructional standpoint, professional development really surrounded around the Department of Education came out with a new way to evaluate all professional staff, administrators, and teachers. So a lot of professional development time was spent on that, as well as student-teacher relationships. Coming back out of COVID, we just talked about connected transportation, but all the different models of education came back this year. And so this was really a main focus for us, is those connections and relationship building with students. Switching gears academically, we switched to a skill-based report card. So the mindset of A, B, C, D, F, or percentage grades is now switched over to here's the continuum of learning. And so that's happening at the elementary school. There was a lot of research that went into that, a pilot group that went into that, parent feedback that went into it, and now that's fully implemented and going very, very well. We also have transitioned ourselves. We've been talking a lot about the intervention specialists. Those intervention roles have grown over the year. We have now interventionists throughout the entire school district, and it started just originally at the elementary school with 3 or 4 teachers, very manageable. Now it's district-wide. We've created a more systematic way of approaching intervention, from the referral process to what does intervention look like for the classroom teacher, for the student, and most importantly. And so that intervention process has been put in place. Camp Spark, we ran Camp Spark for the first time. We talked about we're going to talk about ESY in a few minutes. ESY, extended school year, is connected with Camp Spark. We have over 100 kids signed up for that this summer, so that's going to be ongoing for this year as well. And then we also put together a grade book committee. So that grading committee really focused on how are we approaching grading systematically throughout the district. Some teachers weight grades, some teachers don't weight grades. And so we're in the process of finalizing that as, again, we switch over to a new student information management system. We had to delineate which way we wanted to go, weighted or not weighted grades. And so a lot of research into that, a lot of committee work into that to determine which way. That hasn't been finalized, but that is to be
implemented for next year.
Mr. Potter, quick question. On that committee for grading, do you have representatives from the student body, from the community, from parents, and from the board?
No, the grading committee to figure out what we want to do as a school district was a representative of different teachers across the district, whether that's core, encore, all the different major subject areas are connected there.
Okay, so primarily internal folks.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And so presumably that recommendation will come to the board in the next month or two if you're planning on implementing it.
The goal is June. Worst case scenario, it's going to be August.
Okay, I just, again, because this board doesn't have a curriculum committee, I would just encourage you and your team to try and give us as much advanced input into what's your vision, what's your strategy, what does the research say, so that when you are ready to ask us to approve it, we don't have to do tons of research in a really short time in order to get comfortable with what you're recommending. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I absolutely understand what you were saying.
Okay, okay. I much appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah. I read it in the superintendent's report, those bullet points, and I have a note like to ask you about it. Obviously, we're running short on time, but the more you can tell us in advance, the more engaged I think we'll be in terms of wanting to support you.
And just 30 seconds, full disclosure, this is a project that is on an accelerated timeline that is not normally in keeping with the way we like to run these types of projects. Some things we did find as we have been going through this student information system transition, going from eSchool to Infinite Campus. So it makes you turn over every single rock. And in doing so and reflecting on current practice, this is one of those where like, we really need to make sure we better finalize what our grading practice truly is as a district. And we found as we were looking through district syllabi, hey, how you doing? We're going to recognize her then. As we were looking through the different district syllabi, that oftentimes the teacher's syllabus would say, as in keeping with district grading policy. And me, as the person that oversees that, there isn't one. So we needed to make sure that we went through, and admittedly, that kind of started in January-ish, and that's when we started internally within my office doing a lot of our research to then quickly form a committee. Normally, a process like this would be a year-plus process, but instead of trying to implement the wrong grading system within the new SIS to then teach them how to use it the wrong way to then transition it, this one is one of those that we are definitely, and I was very transparent with our grade book committee. This is going faster than I would ideally like it to. It's not going to differ in the end result. It is all quality work, and I stand by every decision along the way. That's going to be actually great for our district. Don't want to spoil too much, but it is on an accelerated timeline. I want to be transparent about that.
Thank you.
So safe and supportive learning environment, the building projects, I think everyone knows, I talked about that in facility updates. So elementary addition, middle school project, I think everyone knows we're engaged with Brewer Garrett for the third phase. So that's all going on this year. Focused a lot on mental health. And so under Dr. Reese's leadership, we did quarterly mental health. Really, they weren't super well attended, all recorded. But we have one more coming up, and that's going to be a student family mental health and wellness event, and that's coming up
Wednesday.
Thank you. Forgot the date. So that is Wednesday. That should be a great event. And then finally, earlier this year we did the PD comprehensive plan for guidance plan, and then you just heard Dr. Reese for special education. Operational efficiencies. I touched on this earlier upon the student information management system. I can't reiterate enough the amount of work that has gone into that. That is a huge undertaking. Everything that is connected to the district technology-wise, whether it's curriculum or the phone system or point of sale or anything, is all connected back to that SIS. So all of those pieces and moving parts and synchronization of the systems all have to be rebuilt. So that is a massive undertaking that's occurring right now. we did a new, and a lot of trickle effects happened because of that. So new recruiting, human resources tool, new employee record management tool. That's for existing employees, new evaluation tool, talk about that. Pete with the evaluation, professional development, that PD put together a new evaluation system. So that prompted us to come up with a new evaluation system. We switched over to we're going to be switching over to a new food service management software. That's one that is the state sponsored software, Premier Wedge. That is connected with the new company that we have. That's our food service manager. That's recommending that new transportation module. So we're going to a cloud-based module, new online registration connection, new family fee structure. So we're going from my school box standard on campus now. We talked a little bit earlier at the very beginning of the meeting, when Mr. Womack was here, about finding ways to reevaluate the structure in the school day and find additional instructional minutes to be able to remediate and support our students that are struggling, particularly in the high school. We have one of the shortest high school instructional days in the county. So how can we expand that? And so a lot of work was done into that this year. We actually looked at a one-run bus run, but that was going to need 5 additional buses, which was about $100,000 a bus. So that wasn't going to happen, but we're able to squeeze about 15 minutes additional at the high school for some remediation time every day. So that will be in front of the board in June, but that was a massive undertaking this year. Connected to that was retweaking the elementary schedule to more formalize and support that intervention model, again, to purposely capitalize on that time that our intervention specialists connected with the handbook and some of the work we were doing in intervention earlier. RFP process for the cleaning services, as you know, we went through that process, went a different route, but that was a big undertaking this year. And then we added a redundant internet connection. So currently we had internet hardwire that went to the high school and internet hardwire that went to the elementary school. But there was not one that went to the high school to the elementary school. So a physical line has now been run from the elementary to the high school. So all 3 are now connected with hard wires. So if something goes down, someone drives into a telephone pole outside the elementary school, for instance, we could back channel that to the high school, back to the elementary school, and everyone's still up with internet. So that happened this year. And then finally, a huge celebration. We just initiated the Brandywine Heights Education Foundation. That is something that has been a goal for many years. The Education Foundation is a way to create a nonprofit organization to directly support the activities of the school district. Many school districts have this. This is the first time we've engaged in something like this, and the vision for this, the future of this, has so much to be able to offer. So that is a summary of the goals for this year. A lot, sorry. Okay, if I can just pause for a moment. Ms. Walazonsky just arrived. Ms. Walazonsky, I hear you are kind of earlier. Tess, what were you recognized earlier for tonight?
I was inducted into the Hall of Fame, the Athletic Hall of Fame. Yeah. Both my playing time when I was in the high school and, coming back to teach and coach at the high school level as well.
Very cool. Did the girls win tonight?
Yes, they did.
All right, even better.
9 innings.
Wow.
10-9.
Oh my gosh.
Back and forth.
Wow.
Just won this late. So.
Well, coming over, we have a placard here for you. Tess did 32 years for it. She is a physical education teacher and has devoted 32 years of her professional life to the Brandywine Heights Area School District. So huge congratulations, and Mr. Frieda is going to share a few.
I'm excited to be here tonight. Congratulations on the Hall of Fame. I think, when we look at physical education as a class, that is really the smallest piece where I can talk about what Tess has contributed to this. And what she's contributed in health and phys ed is tremendous. But that's a small piece of who she is. And, I think where we are now with Mr. Shire, working with her, the steps she's taking to mentor Mr. Shire, to see, the program that she's built over all of these years continue with Mr. Shire is tremendous. But, I think I would be remiss if I didn't speak with personally what I think Mrs. Walzanski's greatest accomplishment and greatest contribution to our district is the home she's created for our local veterans. And anyone who has been with us on Veterans Day knows
the amount of time, effort, and care that she puts into planning and implementing that day. I don't know how she's standing on November 12th after everything she did leading up to November 11th. And just knowing that we have sometimes upwards of close to 200 veterans who join us on that day, and what she does to recognize those veterans, to recognize them home. And I think I think about my grandfather's generation, the World War II generation, and now I look at our Vietnam vets, and they remind me of what my grandfather was growing up. And I think when we look at how the Vietnam veterans were treated when they came home, a lot of them weren't ever welcomed home. And I think that one of the most amazing things that we do every year is welcome those veterans home. And I think it wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't for Mrs. Wozniacki. So again, all of the great coaching and athletics and phys ed accomplishments she is responsible for, I just think I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about just how truly special she is for what she does for our local veterans. So congratulations on your well-earned retirement.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for supporting me over the years. I always felt supported and accepted and loved by everybody in this district. So thank you to Brandywine for all the opportunities it's given me over the years. I've really enjoyed my time here. So thank you, Mr. Freeman. Appreciate your
Thanks for sneaking over here real quick. Agenda items for this evening, ESY, I talked about that earlier, 25 students for ESY this year, 100 coming to Camp Spark. B to F are curriculum items, textbooks and resources, as well as updated curriculum under E and F. Mrs. Kircher put together a presentation for you. One of the requests last time was to do some highlights of what changed in that curriculum. She was prepared to talk about that tonight, but I think for sake of time, we'll just continue to talk through. So thank you for putting that together, Mrs. Kircher. That's in there this evening. 3 clubs for consideration for this evening. There's been a lot of interest in creating a rifle team within the school district, and so a lot of research was done into that, as well as an esports club. A lot of research was done into that, as well as a fashion club. So the esports club, Mr. Volker really spearheaded and was able to get some grants to be able to get this up and running. As we see some of that decline in regular athletic participation, trying to find a way to engage with students in esports is one of those things that it may sound completely foreign to you. On the flip side, it's now becoming a very mainstream event that is even at the collegiate level. So that is something that is a neat step for us in that direction. And then finally, with the rifle team, that is something, again, that a lot of attraction. We have 16 students that are interested in that. We partnered with Kutztown. Kutztown has a rifle team. Brandywine had one in the past. And so in that attachment, you'll see a bunch of considerations from the safety component of it with gun safes for the rifles. We'll be looking at 5 rifles with a separate gun safe for ammunition. They are small 22 rounds that are used in competition. They use the NRA competition rules for the rifle team. And when you look at a rifle team, we would be trying to attract and work with our local fish and game commissions to host the team, to be able to practice at those events. We would be also looking for donations to be able to offset that. As part of that attachment, you can see the budget that's connected to that. We're looking to offset the majority of that cost through donations and support from the community, local businesses, and those fish and game associations. Safety is probably the most paramount thing when we talk about something like this. And so the coach would be participating in the NRA training program for the coaches. That is this established process that's already there. Again, partnering with Kutztown and their processes is going to be also a key piece. From the gun safe side of it, we would have all those guns locked, as well as the ammunition locked in a separate gun safe. So everything would be completely secured and no risk there in that aspect. I know it could be, I guess, maybe considered a little bit controversial, but I think for this community and for the opportunities that it presents themselves in terms of gun safety, as well as the discipline of
sport shooting, it's a pretty neat opportunity, and to see 16 kids already interested in this is pretty exciting for me to see that many students already engaged in that opportunity. And it reaches maybe a little bit of a different cadre of students as well that maybe wouldn't be involved in particularly a regular mainstream athletic event. And finally, J is the approval of a flexible instructional days. So we were able to use virtual learning on weather days because of an emergency certification at the emergency permit at the state level. That goes away this year. It actually extends next year. We can no longer use it for weather. So we're going to apply. This is to apply for flexible instructional days. The application's in there. This would go for a 3-year application, and it will allow us to use 5 days a year for virtual snow days. Once we reach that cap, we'd have to go back to a traditional snow day. I'm trying to advocate to extend that, but at this point, that's what the law is, 5 days. Any questions on those items?
Mr. Potter, I have a couple of questions on the clubs. So super excited to see the high schoolers, expressing interest in a whole variety of new activities. Fashion club, we have an advisor, it sounds like, and some kids who want to re-engage the fashion show, which historically had been sort of legendary here at Brandywine. So no problem there, and it's self-funding. Esports club, even at the BCIU, there's work being done, and they've been engaged as consultants or overseers of all sorts of stuff related to esports. So I've heard about that one probably for at least 6 or 9 months. And the fact that we have 117 kids at Brandywine who have expressed interest, fabulous. Roughly a $25,000 budget, but it's primarily technology. Okay, and then a club advisor. Okay. The one I'm struggling with is the rifle club. 16 students with a budget of close to 25,000.
Right.
So I'm just wondering if Kutztown already has a program, much like how we send our kids to Kutztown to run track, even though they can wear Brandywine letters and represent our district. Much like I don't know if we still do it, but we send cross-country kids to Ole, if I'm not mistaken. We've sent bowlers to Ole over the years so that we can give our students plenty of opportunities. I'm struggling why we would invest ourselves rather than leveraging a partnership with Kutztown. You indicated we're partnered with Kutztown in terms of them teaching us how to do it ourselves. Why wouldn't we just piggyback on what they're already doing?
Because of the equipment, they would not be able to support us. So they already have a max team, and they have 5 rifles. There's not enough to be able to sustain our students to come over there.
Okay, I'm just trying to compare that to other sports situations. So with track and field, for example, they've already invested in pole vault cushions and shot puts and all that kind of stuff that our kids can use.
That's correct.
Okay.
Bowling, this is unique because there's high-priced items that only 5 people can do it at a time. And so if you double that, then there's no way they'd be able to physically be able to manage that.
So the size of the team, if there's 16, is it 16 current high schoolers?
Yes.
Okay, and presumably not seniors. So that would be current freshmen, sophomores, and juniors.
Yeah.
So 16 out of 3 grades. Do we have vision into what the pipeline looks like in terms of interest in the rifle club? So for example, if we invest in all of the equipment and the safety and security measures and everything we have to invest in, and 5 years from now, there's no longer interest, like, do we have visibility into that pipeline?
I believe strongly that you will have a very sustainable program if we start this. If let's just say it fails, the cost of a rifle isn't like you invested the money and then you've wasted it. It's not like you invested in something with it. You can sell those and recoup a pretty good amount of your initial investment.
Okay, so it's not like if it fails, we're red tagging this stuff. and losing our investment? You feel like it will maintain, the equipment maintains its value pretty well over time?
Especially a rifle. Yes.
Okay. And the consumables, maybe I'm ignorant about it, like bullets and things, are they reused or not?
They could be. There's not
I
a
mean, somebody
tremendous
has to
value.
go
That's not a tremendous
pull them
value.
out of a target.
The value is really the high priced items are your rifles, your gun safety. That could easily be resold.
Okay.
There's a big market for that right now.
And in terms of coaching, who or what's our game plan for coaching?
So just with some feelers, there's already 2 people that are interested that we think might be interested. One
Within
is
our
our
district
parent.
staff?
Yeah, not within district staff, within the community.
Okay.
Both have experience with professional target shooting as well as training firearm safety training. So there's some really good already inherent skills in these individuals that could potentially become coaches.
And those potential coaches, are their children part of this program?
One is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I struggle with this one just because to me the mass doesn't seem to be there to warrant. I mean, we spent years trying to get a swim program up and running, which required essentially no investment by the district. And prior boards just really struggled to support that. Why would we so easily embrace this when it suffers from the same kinds of challenges in terms of small numbers of kids? This has a much higher cost of entry, has safety and security issues. It has all sorts of stuff related to it that some of other sports that we've considered didn't have.
I think from a financing standpoint, it's going to be much easier to get private funding for this. The local rod and gun clubs, I mean, I'm not trying to speak out of school or speak to what they make, but they make a significant amount of money holding shoots, doing different things. And the vast majority of them are consistently looking for places to spend money because they're nonprofits. At a certain point, they have to give money away, otherwise they lose their nonprofit status. So I know, for example, when I started a volleyball club, I actually reached out to Mercetown Rod and Gun Club, and they gave a very sizable donation for a volleyball club. This wasn't even something that had to do with what their core mission is. And it would have financed probably 25% of what the rifle team is looking to get. So I think that if we reach out to Alberta, we reach out to Mercetown, we reach out to Top, then we will find the funding for that, and it'll end up being a net zero as far as revenue is concerned, with the possibility of actually, maybe they might be interested in actually, funding us a little bit more than what we need so we can maybe get some better stuff or get some more additional equipment.
So with that in mind, is there any appetite other than mine to suggest that this be approved as self-funding and not pulling $25,000+ out of the district budget, particularly for year 1 or 2, until we can sort of prove the concept, if you will, and ensure that the pipeline of students and that the vision that we have for this program actually is achieved.
I believe the proposal does address the fact that they are seeking outside funding for the group.
Right.
So the goal is to offset those funds.
Yeah. But for example, that's the goal. What if that money doesn't come to fruition by July 1st? Then the district would have to start buying equipment.
I think it's one of the things that I don't know why it ever disappeared since we were the Brandywine Bullets and we had rifle clubs many, many years ago to begin with. Times we differ. They certainly are mainstream right now, you might say, and I think you might be surprised. We have a local gun shop right here in town, which probably would be willing to somehow, contribute to this. Maybe if nothing else, then just some services, that he'd be able to perform, maintenance or things like that. You also have the Cabela's up in Hayward. I'm sure you got to buy ammo. You got to buy targets. You got to buy everything that you need there, to be successful to do this. And I think Berks County is full of people that would be willing to contribute to that, no matter where you look. I think that even our sheriff, Mr. Wheatneck, would likely maybe do a donation, a personal donation, knowing him.
Yeah, I'd love for these same organizations to donate books or to attend our events or to sponsor other sports teams like the volleyball club.
all
When
about
small
events.
businesses support something that then ultimately feeds them, as an example, Guys Sporting Goods, they'd be crazy, or any sporting good company, crazy not to support the district because quid pro quo is we might order uniforms or baseballs or tube socks or
There you
whatever.
have it. Not only would we do that as a district, but when somebody supports somebody's kid in that respect, they're gonna go there and do it personally too. They're looking to attract business, and that's one way of getting the business you're talking
Yeah,
about.
which in part makes me suspect of their donation.
Well,
because
no,
it's a-
no, no, no.
so-
I think you have a different vision of what is occurring today in today's culture. I can't remember exactly how many millions of guns, handguns, rifles, shotguns, are sold in the last 2 years for different reasons,
Right.
of course. But it's
Yeah, but
very
this is-
popular. Let me say that.
Yeah, this is a high school sport, totally different than, I think, what you're talking about. I have one more question, at least, right? Around Berks County, who are we joining other than Kutztown that has solid rifle program and
So we would be in the Lehigh Valley Prone League, and those school districts are Southern Lehigh, Emmaus, East Stroudsburg, Berwick, Liberty, Freedom, North Pocono, Stroudsburg, East Stroudsburg, and Southburg.
so
Those are the
pretty
school
popular
districts.
in the Lehigh, okay.
And
What
that's the
about
league,
Berks?
that's the league that we would be engaged in. There's a strong push to get attraction in the Berks, and that's why there's not enough to do a PIAA team right now, and that's why you have to go into this subgroup of the Lehigh Valley Pro League. And so the Berks schools, I forget them off the top of my head, I apologize, but there are a couple Berks teams, and I don't want to misspeak. So if I'm wrong, I apologize. I believe Conrad Weiser is one of them. I forget. There's 3 or 4 in Berks County that have a team. It's not obviously.
This is just a club, does that mean that we can, does it only have to be high school?
We would establish it as a high school club. We could look to expand it, but that's the model for town. We'd have to look to see if there's competitions that are within those.
Is the coaching position a paid advisor / coach?
That's what we put in the proposals, that would become a paid position. That'd be the only cost of the school district, is to create.
And what's the compensation for that? Parent / coach?
We didn't identify that. We would have to identify that and put that into the co-curricular approval when we get to the fall. It'd be commensurate with what the other fall sports would be.
So is this a club or is this a sport?
It's a rifle team, which would become a PIAA team eventually.
Okay, so initially we're approving it as a club.
Right.
It would potentially, with momentum, morph into a sport.
Correct.
Under the auspices of the athletic program.
That's right. Yeah, it's a weird font because it can fall under PIAA, but because there's just not enough teams right now, but that's the goal, to get it as a sport.
Thank you for engaging me. I'm struggling, but we can move on.
And does it affect like our insurance, liability insurance and stuff, now that we have that team?
I don't know the answer to that one. We'd have to find that one out. We'll look into that.
I mean, it would increase.
As an insurance professional, what do you think? I mean, it would have to.
Cost would be.
Yeah, I'll find out and report back.
But that cost isn't included in the program expenses projected. Yeah.
Any other questions or concerns?
Can you vote on that one separately, please?
Yeah.
All right, could we have a modified motion? Whoever.
Sure.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay, perfect. All right, so we are voting on all items except for letter G.
Can I just do one more thing?
Oh, sure,
Under enrollment report, I did include that in the weekly update, but I will begin to do monthly reports with the number of teachers. We talked about monitoring that first, second, and third grade classroom. So right now, everything is remaining steady from what we originally proposed. So let's continue to monitor that, and if any adjustments need to be made, I'll recommend that to the board.
Alrighty. Could I get roll call for all items except for G?
Mrs. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Rightnour,
Yes.
Mr. Sheets,
Yes.
Mr. Stubitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Walliser,
Yeah.
Mrs. Eisenhart,
Yes.
Mr. Hefner,
Yes.
Mr. Hohenschuld,
Yes.
Mr. Wagman,
Yes.
9 yeas, motion passes.
All right. Could I get a roll call for letter G?
Mr. Rightnour,
Yes.
Mr. Sheets,
Yes.
Mr. Stubitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Walliser,
No.
Mrs. Eisenhart,
Yes.
Mr. Hefner,
Yes.
Mr. Hohenschuld,
Yes.
Mrs. Hume,
No.
Mr. Wagman,
Yes.
7 yeas, 2 nays, motion passes.
All right. Moving on to personnel. I'm going to try and head it off here. Could I get a motion to approve everything except for letter F?
So move sheets.
Second.
You want to do a second?
And then could I get a second motion for letter?
So moved.
Second.
Perfect. All right, moving on.
All right, so just a few items under personnel this evening. Mrs. Seitman, our assistant business manager, is going to be resigning. She's taken over a business position at Kutztown. We have the resignation of one of our student custodians. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, and that student wasn't able to begin with us. Dr. Reese has submitted her letter of resignation. I think the board's well aware of this, but Dr. Reese has served in this school district as the Director of Pupil Services for several years now and has done a phenomenal job. I keep telling her she's made the program personal. And so thank you, Dr. Reese, for everything you have done. You were absolutely the breath of fresh air that we needed for this special education program. And we wish you the best of luck at the Schuylkill County Intermediate Unit as a special ed director. That opens up the door. That opens up a door. So Mrs. Mandy Kircher in the back is going to be transitioning her role from curriculum supervisor to director of people services. She comes with a depth of knowledge in special education, teaching special education at the within the school district, teaching special education at the collegiate level. She has her administrative degree in administration leadership with a concentration in special education. So a lot of experiences there. We're excited for Mrs. Kircher. So there you go, Mrs. Kircher. And it opens up another door. So Mr. Frida will be shifting roles from the intermediate middle school principal to the next step in his professional career, which would be taking over as the curriculum supervisor in Mandy's previous position. And so I know Mr. Frida is very excited for this opportunity and will do a phenomenal job knowing the level of detail and the connection that Mr. Frida has within the school district. He will do an awesome job with the curriculum supervisor position. So Mr. Frida, congratulations. It opens up one more door. What are we going to do with the intermediate middle school principal? So we're going to advertise, we're going to notify parents after tonight's vote. So that's public knowledge. Let parents know, and then we'll go through the advertising process and take some next steps for hiring that position. Under appointments, we have a recess cafeteria aide in the school district, which is wonderful to be able to find a wonderful person, talented person for that role. We are looking to hire Miss Becker. This is connected back to the resignation of the assistant business manager. She will become the supervisor of financial services beginning May 23rd. We also have a list of student summer help. So the student custodian through the school year has worked phenomenally. And again, I thank the board for encouraging us to do that. This is going to be an extension to that. We've done this over the last couple of years of student summer work to help us over the summertime. We also have an approval of another summer worker there under C2D. And then
Finally, we have 2 leaves for unpaid leaves. One's medical leave. The other one is because the individual exhausted all their paid time off, but that was due to a previous medical condition as well. So the policy with unpaid leaves is myself, the superintendent, can approve 5 in policy, and then after that, the board has to approve the rest of the unpaid leaves. And finally, in the discussions, the board completely recognizes the effort and the value that Mr. Volker has brought to the school district over the last 9 years. In his current position, he has done so many positive things to develop and grow this school district from a technology, curriculum, communication, and otherwise. As a professional partner, it's been wonderful working with Mr. Volker over the last 9 years. And so through that process, the board has extended contract opportunity as moving from assistant to the superintendent to assistant superintendent, which would require a contract. So the item tonight is to approve Mr. Volker, which we talked about voting on separately, but to approve Mr. Volker as the assistant superintendent starting July 1. Any questions on personnel?
Hearing none, can I get a roll call on all items except for F?
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mrs. Walliser?
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhardt?
Yes.
Mr. Hafner?
Yes.
Mr. Hohenscheld?
Yes.
Mrs. Hume?
Yes.
Mr. Reitauer?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
9 yeas, motion passes.
All right, can I get a roll call on letter F, please?
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mrs. Walliser?
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhardt?
Yes.
Mr. Hafner?
Yes.
Mr. Hohenscheld?
Yes.
Mrs. Hume?
Yes.
Mr. Reitauer?
Yes.
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
9 yeas, motion passes.
Is there any additional public comment? Hearing none. Any additional board discussion? I do need to announce there was an executive session before tonight's meeting to discuss personnel issues. Could I get a motion and a second for adjournment?
Few seconds.
Thank you, everyone. Sorry for the marathon meeting, but we got a lot accomplished.
Good job, Mike.